The Ikea Effect. You are lying in bed, the room quiet, except for the soft hum of the night, and the quiet crinkle of your brain folding in on itself. And suddenly, out of nowhere, your thoughts whisper, "Why do I love that wobbly bookshelf I built more than the expensive, perfectly sturdy one I ordered online?" Welcome to the Ikea Effect. And before this thought quietly builds itself into an existential flat-pack nightmare, take a second to like this video. Subscribe if you are into psychological quirks, disguised as bedtime stories, and leave a comment about the strangest thing you have ever fallen in love with, just because you made it yourself. Now, breathe. Let us assemble this idea together. So here is the paradox in bedtime terms. You struggle through an instruction manual written in the ancient runes of Swedish simplicity. You jab your thumb with an Allen wrench. You question every decision you made that led to this point. And when it is over and you are sitting in front of a lopsided, slightly offensive-looking nightstand, you feel proud. Deeply proud. Like you just built the Eiffel Tower out of regret and MDF. That is the Ikea Effect. A psychological phenomenon where we place more value on things we built ourselves, even when they are not particularly good, even when they are clearly crooked, even when one drawer sticks forever like it has secrets. It is not just furniture, it is emotional voodoo. It turns out that if you sweat over something, even a poorly baked cake, a barely functioning app, or a terrifying papier-mâché rabbit, you tend to love it more. Because you suffered for it. You invested in it. You were there in the trenches of creation, and now, like a battle-scarred veteran staring at a crooked shelf, you whisper, "This is mine." The effect was named by researchers who discovered, through a series of cruelly delightful experiments, that people consistently overvalue their own creations, even if their origami looked like roadkill, even if their cake resembled a collapsed lung, even if their self-assembled product seemed like it was holding itself together through pure hope and surface tension. They loved it, because they made it, which, of course, is both heartwarming and mildly terrifying. Because the Ikea effect is not limited to physical stuff. It bleeds into relationships, ideas, arguments, startup pitches, and even the questionable ceramic mug you made in a high school art class that still lives, defiantly, on your parents' shelf, like a relic from a forgotten civilization. If you build it, you will bond with it, even if it is bad, even if it is a broken process at work, a toxic relationship, an idea you came up with in the shower and have since defended with the passion of 1,000 suns, despite all evidence pointing toward nonsense. This is why people cling to failing projects long after everyone else has moved on. Why founders stay with bad ideas because they bled into the prototype. Why we double down on terrible investments, stubbornly declaring, "It just needs more time." What we are really saying is, "I worked on this. It has to mean something." Effort, oddly enough, creates value. Not real value. Not objective, market-tested, peer-reviewed value. But emotional, sticky, irrational value. The kind that makes you stare lovingly at a piece of furniture with a drawer that opens just enough to make you angry, but not enough to be useful. It is almost poetic. The more we put in, the more we believe it is worth. The more it hurts, the more it matters. This is how bad decisions become good stories, and how good stories become lifelong attachments to things that, frankly, never deserved our devotion. But there is a catch. The Ikea effect only works if the thing you build works, even just barely. If the bookshelf falls apart the first time you place a plant on it, you will not feel proud. You will feel betrayed. You will feel like yelling at particle board. You might even start to cry. It is a delicate balance. Effort plus success. Attachment. Effort plus failure. A recycling bin. So what is really happening here? Why does your brain attach worth to your own labor, even when the result is objectively meh? Because building something gives you ownership. Not legal ownership. Emotional ownership. Your effort writes your fingerprints into the fabric of the thing. It says, "This is mine because I suffered for it." And humans, as it turns out, are very bad at separating the value of the thing from the value of the struggle that produced it. We do this with memories too. A vacation that went horribly wrong, the one where you got lost, rained on, and mildly cursed by a local goat, somehow becomes your favorite trip. Not because it was good, but because it was yours. It became a story, a trophy of survival, a handmade, rain-soaked scrapbook of experience. The Ikea effect lives inside every art project you never threw away, every poem you never showed anyone, every wonky, illogical idea you whispered at 3 a.m. and now hold like a tiny secret star. It is the reason parents believe their kids' macaroni art belongs in the Louvre. The reason inventors fall in love with unworkable gadgets. The reason we defend our own opinions as if they are sacred truths carved in oak, even when we only came up with them 5 minutes ago in a group chat. And it is not just pride. It is vulnerability. To love something you made is to see your flaws reflected in it and choose to care anyway. To say, I see you, weird little creation. You are imperfect, but you are mine. But it is also a trap, because the Ikea effect can blind us, make us stubborn, make us dismiss better alternatives because they are not ours, make us polish turds with obsessive devotion because we cannot let go of the effort we put in. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world is to say, I built this, and it is not working, to walk away, to let go, to recognize that love born of effort is still love, but not always wisdom. Still, the Ikea effect is not your enemy. It is just a glitch in the code, a bug that makes you love fiercely, and also waste time defending terrible ideas in online forums. But it can be used for good. Want someone to care more about a decision? Let them be part of making it. Want kids to eat vegetables? Let them help cook them. Want a team to support a new initiative? Let them build it. Sweat makes stickiness. Investment creates belief. And if you are stuck in your own head, wondering if what you made is good, or if you just love it, because it has your emotional DNA on it, maybe that is okay. Maybe being attached to your own effort is not the worst kind of bias. Maybe it is a necessary kind of magic. After all, we are all made of little pieces. Some were handed to us, others we assembled ourselves awkwardly over years. We are walking IKEA kits, half-finished, slightly mismatched, and probably missing a bolt or two. And yet, somehow, we still love ourselves, even when our drawers do not close right. And if that is not beautiful, well, at least it is relatable. And if nothing else, it explains why you still have that abstract shelf that looks like it was designed by a blindfolded raccoon. Because you made it, and no one else would understand, except maybe your cat, who knocked it over. Reverse psychology, why telling people do not, makes them want to do even more. You are lying in bed, soft sheets wrapped around you like a burrito of procrastination, and suddenly your brain taps you on the shoulder and whispers, do not think about pink elephants. And now, there it is. A pink elephant, probably wearing sunglasses, probably dancing, and no matter how hard you try not to think about it, it just grows more vivid, like your imagination decided to host a circus. That is reverse psychology. The fine art of making people want something precisely because they were told not to want it. The mental judo that flips logic onto its back and leaves your rational brain confused, dazed, and slightly offended. It is not just a trick used by tired parents and clever teenagers. It is a deeper, more tangled piece of how human thought works. A quiet rebellion hiding in your brain's circuitry, whispering, "Oh, you told me not to. Well, now I must." And it starts early. A toddler hears, "Do not touch that," and suddenly that object becomes the most interesting object in the known universe. You could tell them, "This is an ancient fossil that predates civilization," and they would stare blankly. But if you say, "No touching," their soul ignites with forbidden purpose. But it does not stop with toddlers. Adults are just bigger, better-dressed versions of the same psychological paradox. Tell someone not to peek at a surprise, and they will hover near it like a moth with unresolved curiosity. Say a movie is banned in 20 countries, and suddenly it becomes a cult classic. mark something, "Do not push," and you may as well put a spotlight on it and cue the dramatic music. Reverse psychology works because the brain does not like being told what to do. It is a stubborn little engine of autonomy. The moment someone says, "You cannot," some internal switch flips, and suddenly the action becomes not only desirable, but necessary. And here is the truly weird part. It often happens without conscious awareness. You do not think, someone is trying to manipulate me by prohibiting this behavior. You just feel the urge rise inexplicably, like your willpower was built with secret trapdoors. This is partly because of a mechanism called reactance. Reactance is your mind's natural pushback when it feels its freedom is being limited. If someone tries to control you, even gently, even with good intentions, your brain raises a tiny picket sign and starts chanting slogans about independence. You may not even care about the thing being restricted. You just care that it was restricted at all. And reactance does not need logic. It does not care about reason or long-term consequences. It is emotional. It is impulsive. It is the reason people speed up when you tell them to slow down. It is the reason some teenagers start dating someone specifically because their parents said not to. It is the reason you click the article that said, "You will not believe this." Reverse psychology is not always loud. Sometimes it is sneaky. Suggest someone is probably not ready for a task, and suddenly they are laser-focused on proving you wrong. Say, "You probably would not be interested in this opportunity," and now it is all they can think about. Tell someone not to look into something, and the next thing you know, they have 17 tabs open and are doing deep research at 3 a.m. But this effect is not just personal, it is cultural. It shows up in marketing, politics, education, and relationships. In advertising, the forbidden is gold. A product that is limited edition, restricted, or censored often becomes wildly desirable. People want what they cannot have, even if they never wanted it before. The limitation creates urgency. The denial creates demand. And suddenly that oddly flavored soda is flying off shelves because the label says it was banned in 4 states and may be too intense. In relationships, reverse psychology is often wielded like a passive-aggressive lightsaber. Someone might say, "Fine, do whatever you want," and what they actually mean is, "I dare you to try." Or they might claim, "You probably would not enjoy that party anyway," knowing full well that now you feel personally attacked, and must attend, if only to prove how sociable you are. In teaching, reverse psychology can be strategic. A teacher might say, "This chapter is difficult. I am not sure you are ready for it," and suddenly every student leans forward, determined to conquer it like an academic mountain. The sense of challenge lights a fire. The suggestion of limitation fuels ambition. Even in therapy, reverse psychology has its uses. A therapist might suggest not trying to change a behavior right away, and that simple permission to let go of the struggle can reduce the tension enough for real change to happen. It is like telling someone to stop trying so hard, and suddenly, things start shifting naturally. Because trying too hard to control the mind often backfires. Which brings us to a very strange truth. Sometimes the best way to influence someone is to give them the illusion of freedom. Suggest, but do not command. Nudge, but do not shove. Present the choice, but make the forbidden one shine just a little brighter. But this technique has risks, because people are not predictable robots. What works on one person may completely backfire on another. Reverse psychology is like seasoning. It must be subtle, precise, and used sparingly. Overdo it, and it becomes manipulation. Misuse it, and people will sense it and resent you for it. Try to use it too often, and it stops working altogether. The brain catches on, the magic fades. It also raises uncomfortable questions. If someone only does something because you made it forbidden, is that really free will? If your mind rebels automatically, how much control do you really have over your choices? And if your need for autonomy is so strong that it overrides logic, what does that say about your ability to make rational decisions? Reverse psychology is not just a clever trick. It is a window into how people respond to control. into how much humans value choice, into how often desire is not about the thing itself, but about what it represents: power, freedom, rebellion, a chance to reclaim something that felt taken away. This is why even mild restrictions can trigger strong reactions, why censorship often backfires, why telling someone, "You are not allowed," turns a boring object into a treasure. It is the oldest psychological dance, the tug-of-war between guidance and resistance. So what can we learn from this? Sometimes, to lead someone toward something, you need to step back, to give them space to want it on their own. Sometimes, trying to control too tightly only invites defiance. The best ideas are often discovered, not pushed. The most meaningful actions are chosen, not imposed. This does not mean you should manipulate people constantly. It means understanding that minds are complicated. They resist pressure. They seek autonomy. They want to believe they chose the path, even if you gently lit the lanterns along the way. And sometimes, you need to use this on yourself. If you tell yourself, "I must sleep now," your brain starts tap dancing. But if you whisper, "I do not have to sleep. I will just lie here," sleep sneaks in like a polite burglar. Tell yourself you will not eat that cookie, and the cookie becomes a siren song. But if you say, "I could eat it if I want, but maybe I will wait," the power returns to you. Reverse psychology is not just a tactic. It is a mirror. It shows how fragile your sense of control can be, how easily it can be provoked, but also how important it is to feel like you have a choice. The brain may be complex, but it is also just a kid in a candy shop, staring at the sign that says, "Do not touch," and reaching for it anyway. And if you ever need proof that reverse psychology is real, just write, "Do not read this sentence," at the top of a page. If someone reads it, well, you will know exactly who you are dealing with. The kind of person who clicks on a sign that says, "Absolutely nothing to see here," probably wearing sunglasses, probably riding a pink elephant. The McGurk Effect, when your eyes trick your ears. You are lying in bed, the lights dim, the sounds of the day retreating like tide from the shore. Everything is quiet. Then you remember something strange you once saw. A man's face on a screen saying, "Ba ba ba." You heard it. It was clear. But then, the same sound was played again. But the video showed his lips forming the sound "vi." And suddenly, your ears betrayed you. What you heard changed. It sounded like "vi," even though the audio never did. And just like that, your brain was hacked by your eyes. That is the McGurk Effect, a glitch in the sensory matrix. A moment when what you see rewrites what you hear. It is one of those phenomena that seems innocent at first, fun even, but quickly begins to unravel your confidence in reality. If your ears can be fooled by your eyes, what else is lying to you? The McGurk Effect is not a parlor trick. It is not a magician's sleight of hand. It is a perfectly natural, deeply weird psychological phenomenon discovered by accident. Two researchers, Harry McGurk and John MacDonald, stumbled into it while studying how children perceive language. What they found instead was that people, when shown one syllable and played another, did not just get confused, they literally heard something different. Not a mix-up, a transformation. It turns out your senses are not loyal employees. They are freelancers working under a shared illusion of teamwork, and your brain, acting as the slightly overwhelmed project manager, does what it always does when faced with conflicting reports. It compromises. It negotiates between what the ears report and what the eyes insist. The result is often something that feels coherent, but is not true. So when you see lips forming the shape of "va" and your ears deliver the sound "bai," your brain says, "Let us meet in the middle." And what you hear is neither "ba" nor "va," but sometimes something entirely invented, like "fa" or "tha." Your mind fills in the gap with a guess. A smooth guess. One that feels so real you would bet your pillow on it. This happens because human perception is not about accuracy. It is about coherence. Your brain does not want the truth. It wants things to make sense. It wants the world to be tidy, synchronized, and narratively satisfying. When your senses disagree, your brain edits the story so that you do not notice the fight. And in most situations, this works beautifully. You cross a street, you drink coffee, you hold a conversation, and your brain does 100 little harmonizations behind the scenes to make it all seem smooth. But every so often, you catch it in the act. Like when a dubbed movie's lips and voice do not match, and your brain cannot unsee the dissonance. Or like when the McGurk Effect rears its head and turns sound into sight. It is not a defect, it is not a bug. It is a feature of multisensory integration. Your brain evolved in a noisy, messy world where trusting one sense alone could be dangerous. So it learned to blend, to cross-check, to override. If you hear a twig snap but do not see a threat, your brain says, be cautious. If you see a growling dog but hear only silence, your brain still says, step back. It takes all the input and blends it into one experience that you call reality. But reality is not a single channel. It is a remix, and that remix can be manipulated. The McGurk Effect is not limited to lab experiments. It can influence real-world communication. In crowded rooms, you rely on lip reading more than you realize. You fill in gaps. You predict words. You lip-sync with life itself. Take that visual information away, and you are more likely to mishear. Add misleading visuals, and your ears are helpless. This is why subtitles can change what you think you are hearing. Why dubbing feels off even when the words are right. Why ventriloquists can convince your brain that the puppet is talking. Because your eyes, so confident, so persuasive, often override your ears. And now you might be wondering, if your ears can be fooled so easily, what else is not to be trusted? Are your senses conspiring against you? Are you really hearing what you think you are hearing, or are you watching it? This is where the McGurk Effect becomes something more than a party trick. It becomes a philosophical nudge, a soft question in the dark. How much of your world is real, and how much is assembled by a brain trying its best to keep you comfortable? Perception is not passive. You do not receive the world, you build it. You interpret, you guess. You fill in blanks and smooth over errors. Most of the time, this creates a functional illusion that keeps you upright, conversational, and able to find your keys. But sometimes, like in the case of McGurk, it reminds you that what you call truth is actually just your brain's best guess. This has implications. In communication, misunderstanding is not always about language or volume. Sometimes, it is about the quiet war between senses. A word misheard is not always a failure of the ears. Sometimes it is an act of visual sabotage, and it raises strange ideas. If someone reads lips and you feed them incorrect visual cues, you can alter what they hear. Not because they are gullible, not because they are wrong, but because that is how brains work. They believe what they see, even when it affects what they hear. In a world of video calls, blurred connections, and digital lips that lag behind digital voices, you are swimming in a soup of McGurk moments. Half of what you hear is stitched together by your brain, using scraps of sound and movement, wrapped in assumptions, delivered to you as confident truth. This is why eyewitness accounts are unreliable, why people argue about what was said, why two people can experience the same moment and come away with different audio tracks playing in their heads. It is not dishonesty. It is perception doing its own remix. So what should you do with this knowledge? You could panic. You could decide that nothing is real, that all of life is a poorly dubbed movie, and that you are one bad lip sync away from complete auditory collapse. Or you could smile. Because this glitch is also a gift. It means your brain is not static. It is adaptive. It integrates, evolves, and creates coherence from chaos. You are not a camera. You are a storyteller. You are not a tape recorder. You are an editor. And every time you see, hear, feel, and understand the world, you are blending your senses into a living, breathing narrative. The McGurk Effect is just a peek behind the curtain, a gentle reminder that your reality is not given, it is built. and sometimes it is built on illusions. But that is not failure, that is flexibility. So the next time someone says something and you swear they said something else, pause before you argue. You may have just had a McGurk moment. Your eyes might have rewritten the script. Your brain might have been doing its job, just a little too enthusiastically. And if you are ever in doubt, try listening with your eyes closed. You might be surprised what your ears were trying to say all along. And if the sound still seems weird, do not worry. That was just someone whispering "ba" with the confidence of a "va." Or maybe your brain is just running its own special edition, with bonus features and slightly worse subtitles. The Ostrich Effect. Why we avoid information that makes us uncomfortable. You are lying in bed, soft darkness wrapped around you like a familiar excuse, and somewhere between drifting off and remembering that one email you forgot to answer, a thought flutters through your mind like a moth bumping into a light bulb. Maybe I should check my bank account. Then, like magic, another thought appears. Or maybe, I will do it tomorrow. And you feel better instantly. Not because the problem is gone, but because you have expertly dodged it. This is the Ostrich Effect. The oddly comforting habit of avoiding information that might upset us, like pretending unopened mail does not exist, or believing that if we do not Google the symptoms, they will stop being symptoms. It is named after the myth that ostriches bury their heads in the sand when they are scared, which, of course, they do not actually do. But humans do it constantly, metaphorically, gracefully, almost professionally. The Ostrich Effect is not laziness. It is not even denial, exactly. It is a psychological defense mechanism, a built-in safety switch that flips when reality starts to feel like too much. You know there might be bad news waiting, but you also know that not knowing gives you a few more moments of peace. A brief window where consequences are suspended and anxiety floats just out of reach. It is the reason unopened bills stay unopened, the reason we avoid medical checkups, the reason you have not checked your work dashboard in 3 days even though something is probably blinking red. Because if we do not look at it, then technically it has not happened. And if it has not happened, we do not need to deal with it. Not yet. This is not a rare glitch in a few anxious minds. It is universal. It is ordinary. It is that moment when your phone buzzes, but you flip it over instead of looking. That second when you mute the news because you just cannot today. That day you pretend the scale does not exist. Information avoidance is as human as breathing. And strangely, it makes sense. Because information is not neutral. It carries emotional weight. A medical test is not just a test. It is a possibility of bad news. A financial statement is not just numbers. It is a report card for your life. And our brains, efficient little survival machines, learn to flinch from discomfort, even when that discomfort could help us. Researchers have found that people avoid information that threatens their self-image, their mood, or their perception of control. If the news might make us feel anxious, helpless, guilty, or even just mildly uncomfortable, we instinctively dodge it. Not because we are irresponsible, but because the brain prioritizes emotional regulation over truth. This is the same brain that evolved to run from tigers. It did not grow up needing to know credit card balances or cholesterol levels. It grew up needing to stay alive and keep emotional distress at manageable levels. So now, in the modern world, when something threatens our emotional safety, we sometimes retreat. Not physically, but cognitively. We scroll instead of confronting. We clean the kitchen instead of reading the email. We rewatch the same series instead of opening the envelope that says urgent. The Ostrich Effect is most obvious in money. People do not want to check their balances after a vacation. They avoid investment dashboards during market crashes. They pretend their budgets are still on track even though their inbox is full of receipts. This does not mean they do not care. It means they care too much, and the emotional weight of knowing feels heavier than the vague anxiety of avoidance. But it is not just money. It happens with health. You feel a lump, but you wait to call the doctor. You hear a strange sound in your car, but you turn up the radio. You ignore the check engine light because for now, the engine still starts. And yet, deep down, we know the truth does not go away just because we are looking elsewhere. It waits patiently. Sometimes it grows. Sometimes it gets worse. And eventually, it demands attention. But that is the trick of the Ostrich Effect. It gives us temporary comfort at the cost of long-term peace. It delays fear but rarely erases it, like putting a blanket over your bills and hoping they suffocate quietly. So why do we do it? Why do we avoid the very information that could help us make better decisions? Because we are not built for endless self-confrontation. Constant awareness of every possible threat is exhausting. It frays the nerves. It drains the spirit. And sometimes, what we need is not more truth, but more time to prepare for it. More space to gather courage. More room between the possibility and the knowing. And sometimes, avoiding information is not just a weakness, it is strategy. It is emotional triage. If you are already dealing with too much, adding more anxiety to the pile can push you over the edge. So you delay, you defer, you wait for a better moment that may or may not come. But here is the curious thing. The Ostrich Effect is not all bad. Sometimes postponing uncomfortable knowledge gives us time to approach it with more strength. Sometimes not knowing allows us to enjoy a meal, a night, a weekend before facing something difficult. Sometimes, the illusion of calm is what helps us get through the day. The danger lies in repetition, in turning a pause into a pattern, in building habits of ignorance that protect us from reality so well that we forget how to return to it. Avoiding the scale for a day is mercy. Avoiding it for a year is disconnection. Ignoring a test result for a weekend is breathing space. Ignoring it forever is gambling. The Ostrich Effect becomes a problem when it becomes a lifestyle, and that is where awareness matters. Not judgment, not shame, just a gentle hand on your own shoulder that says, I see what you are doing, and I understand. But eventually, we will need to look. Because once you do look, something else happens. The fear starts to shrink. The unknown starts to take shape. The monster under the bed turns out to be a laundry basket with a scarf on it. And the truth, while uncomfortable, often comes with a strange kind of relief. Because now you know. Now you can act. Now the story continues. So the next time you catch yourself avoiding information, when you reach for distraction instead of data, when you pretend the thing does not exist, pause. Do not scold yourself. Just notice. Ask what you are afraid to know. Ask what it would change. Ask if now is the moment to face it, or if you need just one more breath first. The goal is not to eliminate avoidance. It is to recognize it, to soften it, to let yourself step toward the truth at your own pace, with as much courage as you can gather and as much kindness as you can afford. Because you are not weak for wanting peace. You are not broken for fearing the truth. You are just human. And being human means sometimes pretending that unopened letters are nothing more than paper, until you are ready. And when you are ready, when you finally look, you may find that the truth is not as loud as the anxiety made it out to be, that the numbers are not as terrifying, that the diagnosis is not the end, that the engine still has time, that you too still have time. And if all else fails, remember this. Ostriches do not actually bury their heads, but if they did, they would probably be hiding from the same thing as you, their online banking app. The paradox of choice. Why more options can make us miserable. You are lying in bed, the day finally behind you, but your brain is still flipping through mental tabs like a browser with too many open windows. Somewhere in that liminal space between almost asleep and mildly overwhelmed, your mind replays the events of earlier. You stood in front of the grocery store shelf for 10 minutes trying to choose a jar of pasta sauce. 10 minutes. For sauce, there were 37 kinds. Tomato basil, roasted garlic, organic tomato basil, fire-roasted pepper, no sugar added, extra sugar added, with meat, without meat, vegan, rustic, smooth, made by Italian grandmothers, made by marketing departments pretending to be Italian grandmothers. You froze, you scanned, You reread labels. Then, exhausted, you grabbed the one that looked familiar and walked away, vaguely annoyed. That is the paradox of choice. The strange, exhausting, deeply modern problem of having too many options and somehow feeling worse for it. It sounds like a luxury, and it is, but it is also a psychological trap. Because in a world that promises freedom through abundance, the very act of choosing can start to feel like pressure, like stress, like a game you are destined to lose. At first glance, more choice seems like a good thing, a sign of progress, a buffet of possibilities. You walk into a world where everything is customizable, tailored, optimized, and for a moment, you feel powerful, free, alive. But then, the moment of decision arrives, and now you are not browsing, you are choosing. And choosing means committing, and committing means letting go of every other option. And that is when the spiral begins. Because with every choice you make, you say no to dozens, sometimes hundreds, of other options. And your brain, instead of celebrating the one thing it picked, starts mourning all the things it did not. This is decision fatigue, the quiet weariness that creeps in when your brain is forced to make too many choices, even small ones. It is not about laziness. It is about the mental tax of endless possibility. You feel it when you open a streaming service and spend 40 minutes scrolling before giving up and watching the same show again. You feel it when you try to buy jeans online and are presented with a drop-down menu that asks for rise, stretch, wash, fit, cuff, and whether you want your denim to be emotionally supportive. You feel it when someone asks, "Where do you want to eat?" And your only honest answer is, "Somewhere where I do not have to decide." The paradox of choice was popularized by psychologist Barry Schwartz, who pointed out that while some choice is good, too much choice can actually make us feel worse. It leads to paralysis, regret, self-blame, and, ironically, less satisfaction with whatever we end up picking. Because when options are limited, we accept imperfections. We say, "This was the best of what was available." But when the menu is infinite, every flaw becomes a reminder of what else we could have chosen. The sauce could have been spicier. The job could have paid more. The partner could have been more punctual. The vacation could have had better towels. And suddenly you are not enjoying your life. You are comparing it to a dozen hypothetical lives you could have had if only you had chosen differently. That is the dark side of freedom. The illusion that the perfect choice is out there, waiting to be unlocked like a secret level in a video game. But perfection is rarely real, and the pursuit of it often leaves us more anxious than fulfilled. Choice also amplifies responsibility. When there are only two options and you pick the wrong one, you shrug and say, "Well, there was not much else." But when there are 50 options and you are unhappy, the blame feels heavier. You chose this, out of everything, and now your brain whispers, "You should have known better." This is particularly cruel when the stakes are high, career, relationships, life paths. But it sneaks into the small things too. It is the reason online shopping can feel like a trap. The reason reading reviews sometimes makes everything more confusing. The reason you can buy something and immediately feel worse, because now you have to live with your own decision. And yet, even knowing this, we chase more choice. We demand it. We celebrate it. Because it feels like freedom. And freedom is seductive. It says, if you are unhappy, it is because you picked the wrong thing. Try again, swipe again, shop again, choose again. And so we do, endlessly. But maybe the problem is not that we are bad at choosing. Maybe the problem is the expectation that we can always choose perfectly. That there is always a best option. That satisfaction lives at the end of a flawless decision tree. Because when you lower that expectation, when you say, "This option is good enough," something strange happens. You relax. You stop comparing. You enjoy what you have. The pasta sauce tastes better. The show is funnier. The jeans fit fine. This is the magic of satisficing. It is the opposite of maximizing. It means choosing something that meets your needs, then moving on. Not because it is the best, but because it is enough. And sometimes, Enough is exactly what you need. This is not settling. This is surviving. Thriving even. In a world that wants you to believe that happiness is always one better choice away, learning to appreciate what you have is not giving up. It is rebelling. Because the paradox of choice does not just drain energy, it feeds anxiety. It tells you that happiness is a puzzle, and if you do not feel it, you must have picked the wrong piece. It makes contentment feel like failure. It turns curiosity into pressure. And that pressure slowly erodes your joy. But choice is not evil. It is just sharp. It needs to be handled carefully. A little choice gives you freedom. A lot of choice gives you doubt. Too much choice gives you a headache and the strange desire to let someone else decide for you. This is why people sometimes long for simpler times, not because they were better, but because the choices were fewer. Fewer paths meant fewer forks. Fewer decisions meant more commitment, and more commitment meant deeper satisfaction. Not always, of course, but sometimes. It is also why we love routines, habits, uniforms, meal plans. They are not just time savers. They are anxiety shields. They reduce the number of decisions we have to make before noon. They free up mental energy for bigger things. They say, you do not have to rethink breakfast every morning. You already know what works. Because it is not just the size of the choice set. It is the emotional labor behind every decision. It is the fear of missing out, the fear of regret, the fear that everyone else chose better. But the truth is, most people are just guessing, just like you, trying things, changing things, making peace with decisions that did not lead to perfection, but still led somewhere. And sometimes that is enough. So the next time you find yourself staring at a wall of options, whether it is toothpaste or travel or turning points, take a breath. Ask yourself what you need, not what you fear. Pick something that works. Let go of the rest. The best choice is not always the perfect one. Sometimes it is just the one that gets you out of the store before your soul starts to fray. And if you ever wonder why your dinner took an hour to cook, it was probably only 20 minutes of prep and 40 minutes of deciding between 3 kinds of risotto rice. The just world hypothesis, why we pretend life is fair, even when it clearly is not. You are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, like it owes you something, and a thought arrives, quiet and familiar. You think about someone who had a bad day, a bad year, maybe even a bad life. And part of your mind whispers, they must have done something to deserve that. You do not want to think it, you know better. But there it is, sitting in the corner of your thoughts, smug and subtle. That is the just world hypothesis, the comforting, misleading belief that the world is fair, that people get what they deserve and deserve what they get, that good things happen to good people, that karma is on the clock, that if someone is suffering, they probably earned it, and if someone is thriving, they must be a better person. It is a lovely idea. It makes the universe feel neat and orderly. It makes life seem manageable. It tells you that if you play by the rules, you will be safe. If you work hard, you will succeed. If you are kind, you will be rewarded. And if something terrible happens, well, you must have done something wrong. But here is the problem. The world does not work like that. Life is not a vending machine. You do not insert kindness and receive justice. You do not put in effort and always get success. And sometimes, terrible things happen to good people for no reason at all. Accidents happen, systems fail, people fall. The just world hypothesis does not want to hear that. It panics at the idea that the universe might be chaotic, that suffering might be random, that tragedy might knock on any door, even if the porch is swept and the lights are warm. So it creates stories, stories where everything is balanced, stories where misfortune is always earned, stories that give a reason, even when there is none. And those stories come at a cost. Because when you believe the world is fair, you start explaining away injustice instead of fighting it. You start blaming victims because it feels safer than accepting that what happened to them could happen to anyone. You see someone struggling and think, they must not have tried hard enough. You see someone hurting and wonder, what did they do to bring this on themselves? It is not cruelty, it is fear. The fear that if bad things can happen to people who do not deserve them, then maybe they can happen to you too. So the brain, in its protective genius, invents a rule book, a false contract with the universe, a deal that says, if I do everything right, I will be spared. It is a deal that breaks, quietly, often. You see it when someone gets sick and people start asking if they ate the right foods, exercised enough, thought the right thoughts. You see it when someone is attacked and people wonder what they were wearing. You see it when people hear about layoffs and immediately start listing all the things they would have done differently, as if that guarantees immunity. Because if the victim did something wrong, then you can do something right. And if you can do something right, then you can be safe. That is the fantasy. That is the bargain. But the truth is harder and softer. It says that life is not a courtroom. It is not a moral scoreboard. Sometimes people lose their jobs because the company wanted a bigger yacht. Sometimes people get hurt because someone else was careless. Sometimes nothing you did caused what happened to you. It just happened. And that is not comforting, but it is real. This does not mean the world is always cruel. It means the world is not always fair. And when you understand that, you stop searching for reasons to justify someone's suffering. You start looking for ways to help. The just world hypothesis shows up quietly, like a helpful librarian misfiling your emotions. You hear a news story about someone who lost everything in a fire, and part of your brain wants to know if they had insurance, if they left a candle burning, if they could have prevented it. You do not want them to be at fault, but it feels better than imagining they were blameless. Because if they were blameless, then maybe your locked doors, your working smoke detectors, your careful routines, maybe they are not as protective as you thought, but maybe this kind of protection was never real. Maybe real safety is not about building walls. Maybe it is about building nets, support systems, kindness, the willingness to say, that should not have happened to you, without adding, what did you do to deserve it? The just world hypothesis is not just an individual illusion. It is built into culture, into stories, into slogans. You hear it in the way success is praised as evidence of virtue. You hear it in the way misfortune is framed as failure. It creeps into politics, into justice systems, into workplace policies, into the way we treat the sick, the poor, the unlucky. And it is seductive because it is simple. It says, if someone is struggling, they must be lazy. If someone is rich, they must be smart. If someone is lonely, they must be unlovable. It takes messy, complicated lives and shrinks them down to fairy tale logic. But real life is not a fairy tale. It is not a morality play. It is not always a lesson. It is sometimes just weather. And sometimes people get caught in storms they did not cause and could not avoid. This does not mean we should give up on fairness. It means we should stop pretending the world is already fair and start working to make it fairer. It means recognizing that someone's pain does not need your explanation. It needs your compassion. Because when you let go of the need to believe that everything happens for a reason, you make space for empathy. You stop measuring what someone deserves and start asking what they need. And maybe that is a better kind of justice. Not the cosmic kind, but the human kind. It says, you are in pain. I believe you. I do not need to know if you earned it. I am here. That is what breaks the spell. That is what lifts the curtain on the just world illusion. And once you see through it, you start noticing all the little ways it shows up. In the way people talk about addiction, about poverty, about trauma, about struggle. You hear the blame dressed up as advice, the judgment wrapped in concern, the quiet implication that if you had made better choices, life would be kinder. But sometimes you made the best choices you could, and life was still cruel. And that does not make you weak. It makes you human. And if anyone says otherwise, they probably also believe that all car alarms are effective and that printers work on the first try. The serial position effect. Why you remember the first and last, and forget the middle. You are lying in bed, your thoughts gently packing up the day, when a strange question tiptoes into your mind. You think back to a long, complicated list someone read to you earlier, maybe groceries, maybe instructions, maybe that time you were introduced to 6 new people in under 30 seconds, and you remember the first one and the last one, but everything in the middle, a vague, formless soup of syllables. You nod, as if this is normal. Because it is. This is the serial position effect. The quiet, relentless way your brain tends to remember the beginning and end of things, while casually losing interest in the middle. It is like your memory is attending a party, and only remembers the person who welcomed it at the door and the one who waved goodbye, while everyone else blurs into a polite fog. The serial position effect is not a flaw, it is a feature, a default setting in the human mind. When you are presented with a list, words, names, ideas, instructions, your brain tends to hang on to the first few items thanks to something called the primacy effect. It also clings to the last few thanks to the recency effect. But the ones in between, they often vanish, like socks in a laundry cycle. Primacy comes from attention. At the beginning, your brain is fresh, alert, ready to receive. The first item feels important, and it gets rehearsed. It is placed lovingly into your mental notebook, underlined, highlighted, and maybe even doodled around. Recency, on the other hand, benefits from timing. The last item is still echoing in your mental hallway. It has not had time to fade. It is right there, still warm from the oven, easy to reach. The middle, though, sits in a no-man's land. Not early enough to benefit from primacy, not recent enough to enjoy recency. It is like being the third act in a 5-act play. The audience is not paying full attention anymore. They are wondering how long until the end. You see the serial position effect everywhere, in speeches, in meetings, in dinner conversations where someone tells a long story and you only remember how it started and the punchline at the end. The middle part, the journey through anecdotal purgatory, is gone. Not because it was boring, but because your memory just does not prioritize it. This effect becomes painfully obvious in situations like job interviews. The first candidate sets the tone. The last one leaves the freshest impression. Everyone else? It depends. Unless they set something on fire or bring snacks. The serial position effect is not just about memory. It is about perception. You judge experiences based on how they begin and how they end. A movie with a strong opening and a great final scene will feel better overall, even if the middle dragged a bit. A date that started awkwardly but ended sweetly feels romantic. A vacation that began with lost luggage but ended with a sunset might still be called perfect. This is the psychology of edges, the power of entry and exit. Your brain likes clean bookends. It likes to mark the beginning and the end, and it is willing to do some generous editing in between. Marketers use this. Presenters use this. Magicians certainly use this. They put the most impressive tricks at the start and the finale, knowing that the middle is a blur of polite clapping and mental snack breaks. Even playlists rely on this. A strong opening track and a powerful closer make the entire list feel stronger, even if track 6 is just a recording of someone vacuuming. There is science behind this. The primacy effect is linked to long-term memory encoding. The early items are rehearsed more because they arrive when your working memory is clear. You are focused. You are not distracted yet. So they get repeated internally and sink deeper. The recency effect, meanwhile, is about short-term memory. These items are still floating in your working memory when someone says, "Now repeat it back." But working memory is fragile, easily overwritten, which is why if you are distracted, even briefly, the recency effect can vanish. Like if you were asked to memorize a list, then someone immediately gives you a math problem. That math problem swats the recent items out of your mind like a brain-level bouncer. This also explains why multitasking hurts memory. If you are listening to a list while scrolling through your phone or worrying about whether you left the stove on, your brain has less space to encode information. Primacy suffers. Recency suffers. And you are left with a vague memory that someone mentioned something, possibly involving hummus. Understanding the serial position effect can make you smarter about how you organize your day. If you have a meeting, open strong, end strong. People will forgive a wandering middle. If you are giving a speech, put your key message at the beginning and repeat it near the end. If you are trying to be memorable on a date, maybe do not schedule your most charming moment for minute 22 when your date is wondering where the waiter went. And when it comes to learning, break your sessions into chunks. Shorter study intervals with breaks allow you to create more beginnings and ends, making it easier for your brain to anchor the material. Trying to cram a giant list into one sitting is like pouring water into a cup that is already full of random trivia and jingles from commercials you heard when you were 6. There is also a hidden kindness in knowing this effect exists. You stop being so hard on yourself for forgetting the middle. You accept that memory is not a perfect record. It is a story your brain tells you, stitched together with selective details and helpful guesses. And sometimes, the story loses the middle chapter. This is why people sometimes look back on experiences with a strange sense of distortion. A vacation with a stressful midweek argument might still feel magical if it started with excitement and ended with laughter. The middle fades, the edges shine. It also helps explain why some endings matter so much. They are not just conclusions. They are memory bookmarks. They shape how the whole thing is remembered. A great ending can redeem a mediocre experience. A bad ending can sour a great one. Your brain does not tally up every moment. It highlights, it curates, it simplifies. So maybe the key is to stop worrying so much about the middle. Maybe it is okay if every part of the day is not productive or perfect. Maybe what matters is how you start it, and how you close it, with presence, with care, with a little gratitude if you can manage it. Because that is what lingers. That is what stays. And if you ever feel like someone forgot everything you said except your opening and closing line, do not take it personally. That is just their brain following its programming. That is just the serial position effect doing what it does best. And really, if you want to be unforgettable, you could always open with a flaming baton and close with interpretive dance. Just be sure the middle does not involve tax law. Anchoring bias. Why your brain grabs the first number and will not let go. You are lying in bed. The world quiet except for the soft hum of old thoughts sliding back into your mind. Earlier today, you saw a pair of shoes for $400. You did not buy them. You would never buy them. But now you are looking at a different pair, $70, nothing flashy, and something strange happens. They seem affordable, a deal, a steal. 70 suddenly feels like a discount, not a price. That is anchoring bias. The mental hiccup that happens when your brain grabs the first number it sees and uses it as a reference point for everything that follows. It does not matter if the number is random. It does not matter if it has nothing to do with what you are buying, choosing, deciding, or valuing. Once it is in your head, it sticks. Like the first song in a playlist or the smell of the first apartment you ever rented. It becomes the anchor. And your brain ties everything else to it. This is not a rational process. It is not something you notice. It is a subtle gravitational pull that bends your judgment without asking for permission. Anchoring happens so quietly that most people believe they are being logical while their brain is busy doing backflips around a number it saw 2 seconds ago. You see it in pricing all the time. A watch listed at $1,200 with a red line through it, now marked down to $600. You were never going to pay $1,200, but $600 feels reasonable now, even generous, because your brain is comparing it to the anchor, not to reality. This is why restaurants list one absurdly expensive item at the top of the menu. It is not there to be ordered. It is there to make the other dishes look cheap. Anchoring works like magic, but it is not magic. It is marketing. It is psychology. It is the invisible hand of expectation, reshaping perception. And it does not stop at shopping. It slips into negotiations, where the first offer sets the tone. If someone asks for $90,000 and you counter with $70,000, the middle ground feels fair. But if they had started at $80,000, your $70,000 would feel low. The anchor shifts the entire conversation, even though nothing else has changed. Anchoring bias works in trivia too. Ask people if Gandhi was older or younger than 120 when he died, and most people will laugh. Then ask how old he actually was, and their guesses will be much higher than if you had started with a different question, because the ridiculous anchor still nudges the answer, even when it makes no sense. This effect was first explored by psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, who found that people were ridiculously easy to sway with irrelevant numbers. In one study, participants spun a wheel that landed on a random number, then were asked to estimate the percentage of African countries in the United Nations. The people who got a higher number on the wheel gave higher estimates. The wheel was rigged. The number was meaningless. But the brain latched onto it anyway, like a toddler grabbing the first toy in sight. Anchoring bias is everywhere. It is in salary negotiations. It is in real estate listings. It is in charity requests that start with, "Would you consider donating $500 so that your 50 feels modest?" It is in the way brands price 3 versions of a product so that the middle one seems like a smart choice, when in reality, all the prices were designed to play off one another like actors in a well-rehearsed con. But anchoring is not just about numbers. It can affect how you evaluate people, events, even memories. The first impression you form becomes the anchor, and everything else gets adjusted from there. If someone seemed awkward at first, you may continue to see awkwardness, even if they loosen up later. If a movie starts strong, you forgive the bad middle. If a vacation starts with a canceled flight, it might color the rest of the experience, no matter how beautiful the beach is. Your brain does not like floating in uncertainty. It wants a point to hold on to. Anchoring gives it that point. It says, "Start here," and your mind says, "Thank you," and builds the rest of its judgment around it. But the anchor is often nonsense. It is not truth. It is not context. It is just first. And being first is powerful. This is why you remember the first price you heard, the first version of a story you were told, the first guess you made. It becomes the standard, and every adjustment from it feels like a deviation, even if the anchor was wildly off. The scary part is how resistant anchoring bias is to correction. Even when you know about it, even when you try to ignore it, it still works. It is like trying not to hear a jingle that has already invaded your head. The best you can do is be aware of it. Pause. Ask where the number came from. Ask if it makes sense. Ask whether you are reacting to reality or just reacting to the ghost of the first thing you saw. Anchoring bias is not about stupidity. It is about efficiency. Your brain has to make thousands of decisions every day, and it uses shortcuts. Anchors are one of those shortcuts. They save time. They reduce ambiguity. They give your mind something to grab when everything else feels uncertain. But they also lead you astray. They make you overpay, underestimate, overestimate. They skew judgment, twist perception, tilt memory. And they do it quietly, like a magician who never asks you to pick a card, just nudges you toward one. Knowing this does not make you immune, but it makes you curious. It makes you notice. It makes you a little more skeptical the next time someone tells you what something is worth before you have had a chance to decide for yourself. It also helps explain some of your own decisions. That time you bought something because it was on sale, not because you needed it. That time you aimed for a salary that sounded fair only because it was higher than your last one. That time you judged someone quickly and could not seem to update your opinion, no matter what they did. Anchoring bias does not mean you are broken. It means you are human. You live in a world full of numbers, choices, and noise. Anchors help you survive, but sometimes they make you drift in the wrong direction. And when that happens, the best thing you can do is look around, recheck your bearings, and ask whether that number you grabbed first is actually holding you steady, or just holding you back. And if nothing else, try not to shop online after seeing a luxury handbag, because suddenly, everything else looks like a bargain, even the lamp shaped like a goose holding a light bulb in its beak, which you now own, because $70 seemed reasonable. The false memory effect. when you remember things that never happened. You are lying in bed, eyes closed, drifting somewhere between reality and dreams, when a memory comes back to you. A childhood moment, a vivid image of eating a green popsicle on the back porch while your cousin rode a bike in slow circles nearby. The sun was low. The air smelled like cut grass. You feel certain this happened. You can see it. Except your cousin never had a bike, and your back porch was red brick, not wooden, and you hated green popsicles. That is the false memory effect, the quiet, confident way your brain can serve up stories that feel real but are not. Memories that have all the texture, weight, and certainty of lived experience, but are stitched together from fragments, suggestions, and imagination. It is not lying. It is not misremembering in the casual way we forget where we left our keys. It is deeper than that. It is remembering something that never actually occurred, and not just believing it happened, but knowing it did, with your whole chest, with total confidence. This is one of the stranger tricks your mind plays, because you are taught to trust your memories. You lean on them. You reference them in arguments. You base decisions on them. And yet, your memory is not a recording device. It is a storytelling organ. It does not store footage. It creates scenes. It edits. It rewrites. And sometimes, it adds entire events that were never filmed. This is why eyewitness testimony is unreliable, why family members disagree about what happened on that one Christmas in 1997, why you are so sure the cereal mascot winked at the end of the commercial, even though no footage backs it up. Your brain fills in the blanks. It completes the puzzle. It smooths out the wrinkles of reality so that everything fits neatly into the version of the past you believe in. The false memory effect was studied extensively by psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, who discovered how easy it is to implant false memories through suggestion. Participants were told they had been lost in a mall as a child, even if it had never happened. Many of them remembered the event in vivid detail. Some added descriptions, some even cried. It was not deception, it was construction. Memory is not pulled from a vault. It is rebuilt every time you remember. Each time you recall something, your brain reassembles it using pieces from your senses, emotions, and context. And every time you do, there is room for a little more fiction to sneak in. Over time, the original fades. The remix remains. This is why two people can remember the same conversation entirely differently. One recalls laughter, the other recalls tension. Both are convinced, both are wrong, or right, or some hybrid in between. Memory is not about accuracy, it is about meaning, and your brain does not like gaps. When it cannot recall something, it does not shrug. It gets creative. It fills in the silence with plausible noise. It borrows images from dreams, lines from movies, suggestions from others. And soon, you have a memory that never existed, but feels just as solid as the real ones. The Mandela Effect is a popular example. Whole groups of people remember something that never happened, a logo that never looked that way, a quote that was never said, a scene in a movie that never existed. But people argue about it, insist, swear they saw it, because their memory is not lying. It is just wrong in a very believable way. Your mind is trying to help. It wants your story to make sense. It wants your life to feel coherent. So it smooths the timeline. It fills in character details. It inserts props. It adds scenes for emotional resonance. And then it hands you the finished cut and says, "This is what happened." And you say, "Thank you," and move on. But the false memory effect is not always harmless. It can influence legal cases. It can change the way you feel about people. It can rewrite your past in ways that make you doubt yourself. It can take moments you once treasured and color them with details that were never there. Sometimes, your brain wants to believe something happened so badly that it builds it from scratch. A perfect childhood moment, a romantic gesture, a warning sign you now remember clearly but missed at the time. Memory is tied to identity. It shapes who you believe you are. And when that foundation is built on fiction, It can feel like your entire self is a little off balance. But here is the gentle truth. Everyone has false memories. Everyone. There is no perfect mind, no flawless archive. You are not broken because your brain filled in the blanks. You are just human. The key is humility. Knowing that your memories are flexible does not mean you stop trusting them completely. It just means you treat them like stories told by a good friend, reliable most of the time, but prone to exaggeration, poetic license, and the occasional dramatic flourish. It also means you stop arguing so hard about what really happened. Because sometimes it did not happen at all, or it happened differently, or you both remember it correctly, just from opposite sides of the room. Memory is deeply personal and deeply creative. It is not a courtroom transcript. It is a novel written in real time, revised with every reading. The author is you. But you are also the reader. And sometimes the editor sneaks in and adds a talking dog to chapter 3. Understanding this does not have to make you feel paranoid. It can make you feel gentle. Toward yourself, toward others, toward the fuzzy edges of your own past. Because maybe the point of memory is not perfect recall. Maybe it is emotional resonance. Maybe your memory of eating popsicles on the back porch was your brain's way of capturing something else. Comfort, simplicity, the feeling of summer. Maybe that was real, even if the details were not. And maybe that is enough. So the next time you are absolutely sure something happened, and someone else is just as sure it did not, pause. Maybe one of you is wrong. Maybe both of you are. Maybe memory is not about who is right, but about what you needed it to be at the time. And if you ever doubt just how convincing false memories can be, remember that time you swore you saw someone you knew waved across the street called their name, and realized too late it was a stranger in a very similar coat. That never happened to you? That is strange. It definitely happened to you in my memory. Repetition, persuasion. Why hearing something over and over makes you believe it. You are lying in bed, the world finally quiet, but your brain is not. It is whispering old phrases, half-formed thoughts, things you have heard 100 times, sayings, slogans, taglines, songs. A weird mix of leftover sentences from earlier in the day. You think of a fact you are not sure is true, but you have heard it so often it feels true. And that is where the trap begins. This is repetition persuasion. The strange and powerful way hearing something again and again makes you more likely to believe it, even if it is not true. It is not logic. It is not proof. It is familiarity. Your brain, in all its brilliance, confuses repetition with reliability. This is sometimes called the illusory truth effect, and it works on everyone. Smart people, skeptical people, people who double-check sources and know how to fact-check like professionals. If something is said enough times, in enough places, it starts to feel true. It lodges itself in your memory, not because it earned a place there, but because it kept showing up. You see this all the time, in advertising, in politics, in rumors, in conspiracy theories. Someone says something and it seems strange, even absurd. But then it comes up again, and again. And by the 5th or 6th time, it sounds less weird. By the 10th time, it sounds familiar. And once it is familiar, your brain lowers its guard. The reason this works is surprisingly simple. Your mind is busy. It has limited processing power. When new information arrives, your brain runs a quick checklist. One of the things it asks is, have I seen this before? If the answer is yes, your brain relaxes. It decides the information is easier to process. It feels smooth, it feels easy, and your brain interprets ease as truth. This is why first impressions matter, why brand names repeat themselves, why chants work, why propaganda repeats. Repetition does not improve accuracy, it just wears down resistance. Think of a song you disliked the first time you heard it, but then you heard it again and again, on the radio, in the store, in the background of a video, and suddenly you are humming it, singing it, defending it. You do not even know when it happened. but now it feels like part of your life. That is repetition persuasion. It turns noise into signal. It turns confusion into comfort. It makes the unfamiliar feel safe. And once something feels safe, it becomes harder to question. This effect shows up in everyday conversation. Someone repeats a piece of trivia, and suddenly it becomes common knowledge. Like the idea that humans only use 10% of their brains, that goldfish have a 3-second memory, that Napoleon was short, all false, but widely believed, because they have been said enough. It happens in personal stories too. You tell the same version of an event so many times that the telling becomes the truth. Not because you are lying, but because your brain loves a consistent narrative. And consistency feels good. It makes the world seem stable. And yet, repetition persuasion is not always dangerous. It can be used for good. It is how people memorize important facts, how affirmations work, how language is learned. It is how athletes build muscle memory, and how musicians turn notes into music. Repetition is how humans master things. But when it comes to beliefs, especially emotional, political, or social ones, repetition can bypass reason. It can slip under your critical thinking and make itself at home before you even notice. This is why misinformation spreads so easily. Because the first time you hear something false, you may reject it, but after the 10th time, it feels familiar, and familiar things feel right. Your brain does not always ask, "Is this true?" Sometimes it just asks, "Does this feel true?" And feelings are easier to influence than facts. And this is not about gullibility. This is about architecture. Your brain is built to favor things it can process quickly. Familiarity speeds things up. And speed feels good. Speed feels trustworthy. The problem is, truth does not always move quickly. Sometimes it is slow, complicated, messy, and repetition can outpace it. Repetition persuasion is also sticky. Once something has been repeated into your memory, it is hard to unstick it. Even if you later learn it is false, the original version lingers. It keeps popping up. This is called belief perseverance. The falsehood becomes part of the furniture. You know it should not be there, but it is already a chair, and it is holding up your coffee cup. This is why corrections are so hard. You can present facts, evidence, data, but the repeated message still feels stronger. It has roots, it has weight, it has rhythm, and sometimes it even rhymes. So what do you do with this? You notice. You pay attention to how often you hear something, not just what is being said. You question why something feels true. Is it because it is backed by evidence? Or just because it has been said so many times that your brain stopped resisting? You also become more careful about what you repeat. Because repetition is powerful. If you repeat a lie to debunk it, your brain may still store the lie. If you echo a rumor to make fun of it, it still gains familiarity. Your brain does not always understand sarcasm. Sometimes it just hears the sound, not the message. But this does not mean you stop trusting yourself. It means you trust yourself more deeply. You know your brain has shortcuts. You know it loves familiarity. And that knowledge makes you stronger, not weaker. And sometimes you can use repetition on purpose, to learn, to change, to remind yourself of things that matter, to replace old ideas with new ones. Not because repetition is magic, but because repetition is how the mind reshapes itself. And yes, that means sometimes you have to hear something again and again before it finally sinks in. Like that time someone kept telling you to drink more water, or take breaks, or stop reading the internet before bed. You ignored them, of course, until you heard it the 5th time. And now, here you are, listening. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, why you suddenly see something everywhere. You are lying in bed, thinking about something random, a word, an idea, maybe a car you saw earlier today. Let us say it was a pale green station wagon. A weird choice, a little boxy. You noticed it once and moved on. But then, tomorrow, you will see another one, and then another. And suddenly it feels like the universe has launched a fleet of pale green station wagons just to mess with you. This is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also known as the frequency illusion. The strange mental glitch where, once you notice something for the first time, you begin seeing it everywhere. It is not because the thing has suddenly multiplied. It is because your brain, now that it has been introduced, starts paying attention. It feels like a coincidence, but it is not. It feels like a pattern, but it is not. It is attention mixed with memory. It is your mind tuning into something it had always filtered out before, and once it is tuned in, it does not tune out. The name Baader-Meinhof comes from a 1990s internet forum where someone casually mentioned hearing the name of a German terrorist group twice in 24 hours. That moment of sudden repetition felt strange enough to earn a name, and the name stuck. Even though the psychological term for it is frequency illusion, most people still call it Baader-Meinhof because, ironically, they have heard it before. And that is how it works. The first time you hear a new word, a new song, a new concept, it is like your brain opens a tab. Not a full window, not a saved bookmark, just a tab. Something that says, this might be useful. Then, when you encounter it again, your brain lights up. See? It is happening again. It is not magic. It is pattern recognition, plus selective attention. Your brain processes a ridiculous amount of information every day. It filters most of it out so you are not constantly overwhelmed by license plates, cereal boxes, and the color of everyone's shoelaces. But once something becomes personally relevant, it gets promoted. Your mind stops filtering it and starts flagging it. You decide you like a specific kind of dog. Suddenly, you see that dog everywhere. You learn about a medical term. Suddenly, it shows up in a podcast. You hear a song in a store, and now it follows you like a polite ghost through cafes and waiting rooms. It is not following you. You are just finally noticing it. This is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, and it is both fascinating and a little unsettling. Because it makes you question your own perception. If something can go from invisible to everywhere in one day, what else have you been missing? The truth is, your brain is not designed for objective reality. It is designed for relevance. It tracks what matters to you, and what matters can change quickly. One moment you do not care about houseplants. The next, after someone gifts you one, you are suddenly aware of how many people in your building have snake plants in their windows. This is also why buying a car feels like summoning a tribe. You pick a car, think it is rare, then see it at every traffic light. Not because everyone copied you, but because now your brain is on alert. It has a car-shaped radar, and it will not stop pinging. The Baader-Meinhof effect also explains why learning something new can feel like opening a floodgate. You read about a historical event for the first time, and now it is in documentaries, conversations, trivia nights. The world did not change. Your awareness did. And once you notice it, you start questioning other patterns. Are you really seeing more of something? Or are you just paying more attention? Are people suddenly talking about the same topic? Or are you simply tuned to it now? Has the universe conspired to make this one item appear over and over? Or has your brain just stopped ignoring it? This effect is harmless most of the time. It is even entertaining. But it becomes tricky when it intersects with beliefs. If you suspect something is true, you start noticing evidence to support it. Your brain highlights every match and ignores every mismatch. This is how bias grows. This is how confirmation happens. It is not that you are seeing more truth. It is that you are filtering the world through a new lens. You believe people are rude today, so you notice every moment of rudeness and miss the quiet kindness. You believe something is dangerous, and now every news story confirms it. The Baader-Meinhof effect is not just about repetition. It is about expectation. Your mind finds what it is prepared to find. But this is not a failure. It is survival. In the wild, noticing something once and staying alert to it after could keep you alive. That shape in the grass might be a predator. That sound in the dark might be a threat. The brain evolved to update its radar quickly. It is just that now, in the modern world, it is more likely to fixate on things like logos, song lyrics, and oddly specific coffee orders. The frequency illusion can also be comforting. It makes you feel like the world is responding to you, like the universe is nodding in your direction. You think of something, and then you see it. It feels like magic, like alignment, like fate wearing a name tag. But really, it is just you, awake to something you were once blind to. It reminds you that awareness is powerful, that what you focus on expands, that noticing is not passive, it is participation. Your reality is shaped not just by what exists, but by what your brain chooses to notice. So what do you do with this? You pay attention to what you pay attention to. You ask yourself, did this increase, or did I just notice it more? You treat patterns with curiosity, not certainty. You remember that perception is filtered, and filters can shift. And maybe you let this effect comfort you in small ways. Maybe that song showing up twice in a day does not mean anything grand, but maybe it means you are awake, connected, tuned in. Maybe it is a reminder that your brain is always working behind the scenes, weaving relevance into the fabric of the day. And if you ever feel overwhelmed by how often something is showing up, whether it is a number, a word, a phrase, a joke, remember, it is not the universe targeting you. It is just your brain trying to be helpful. And occasionally, it gets a little too enthusiastic, especially with pale green station wagons. You saw 3 this week. You are starting to wonder if they have meetings. The fear then relief technique. How your brain becomes more agreeable after a scare. You are lying in bed, almost asleep, when you remember the time someone knocked on your door with that look, the urgent, serious look, the "we need to talk" face. Your heart raced. Your thoughts raced faster. You imagined bad news, a problem, a confrontation. But then they said, "Sorry, I thought this was apartment 3B." And just like that, your fear dissolved. You laughed nervously. You smiled. You offered them a cookie you were not even planning to share. That moment, that strange urge to be kind, helpful, agreeable, right after a quick scare, that is the fear then relief technique. It is a psychological trick that works so reliably it should come with a warning label. The idea is simple. First, create a sudden jolt of fear, not horror movie fear, just enough anxiety to make the brain go, "What now?" Then, once the fear is lifted, once relief kicks in, you are more likely to agree to something, a request, a favor, a suggestion. Your defenses lower, your mind softens, and your nervous system breathes out through your decision-making. It feels manipulative, and that is because it is. But it also reveals something interesting about how your brain works. You are not always making choices from a calm, rational place. Sometimes you are reacting to the emotional aftershocks of almost trouble. The fear then relief technique has been studied in psychology labs. In one experiment, researchers had people approach strangers in a parking lot and say, "Your meter has expired. You might get a ticket." The person would tense up, obviously concerned. Then the researcher would say, "Just kidding, you are fine." Moments later, they would ask the person to fill out a survey. And most of them agreed. Why? Because the brain went from tension to ease so quickly that it became a little more generous, a little more willing to say yes. Because fear primes you to act, and relief makes you grateful the action is no longer urgent. This is the trick that telemarketers and scam emails sometimes use. They make you worry something is wrong. A charge you did not authorize, a package you did not order, a problem with your account. You get a spike of adrenaline. And then when they say, "But we can fix it," your brain, still recovering from the alarm, becomes cooperative, vulnerable, less critical. But the fear then relief pattern does not need to be deliberate to work. It happens in everyday life too. You think you lost your phone, panic. You find it under the couch cushion, relief. A friend calls and you offer to help them move. Why? Because you are riding the wave of gratitude that your life is not in crisis. Your generosity blooms from relief. You get an unexpected email from your boss with the subject line, "We need to talk." Your stomach drops. But then it is just a schedule update. And suddenly, you are replying with unnecessary exclamation points and offering to work late on Friday. That is your brain reacting to emotional whiplash. Fear activates your fight or flight system. Your body prepares for a threat. muscles tighten, focus narrows, heart rate rises. You are ready to react. Then, when the fear is removed, your body crashes into calm. But that calm is not neutral. It is flooded with relief, which feels good. And feeling good makes you more agreeable. The space right after fear is like a psychological soft spot. You are not thinking clearly yet. You are grateful to be safe. You are still processing the emotional leftovers. And someone asking you for something in that moment might just get a yes that they would not have gotten 5 minutes earlier. This technique also shows up in marketing. An ad might suggest a problem. Your skin is aging, your computer is slow, your car is not safe, and then offer a solution. The relief feels like an escape, and buying the product feels like a return to safety. Even in storytelling, this works. A movie creates tension. Will the hero survive? Will the couple break up? Will the dog make it home? Then, relief, resolution. And in that moment, you are wide open to the next suggestion, which is usually the sequel. Fear. Then relief is a roller coaster your brain did not ask to ride. But once it does, it often steps off saying, "Sure, I will buy the souvenir photo." This does not mean people are weak. It means people are emotional creatures, and emotions shape decisions. The moment right after a scare is one of the most suggestible states your mind enters. Not because you are broken, but because you are human. It helps to know this about yourself. Because you can catch it. You can pause. You can say, wait, am I agreeing because I want to, or because I almost got scared, and now I am grateful I am not? It is not always easy to spot. The technique is subtle. A car almost hits you in a crosswalk, but it misses. A stranger helps you up. You thank them profusely. They ask for a donation, and your brain says, they are kind, and I am alive. Let me give them $10 and a hug. But awareness brings clarity. You can learn to ride the emotional waves without letting them carry you into decisions you did not mean to make. You can also use this pattern for good. If someone is overwhelmed, you can help them through it. And when the relief sets in, you can guide them gently toward a helpful action. Not manipulation, just timing. Just kindness with good timing. Because relief is powerful. It resets the brain. It opens the heart. It turns the volume down on fear, but the emotional echo still lingers. And in that echo, people make decisions. Understanding the fear then relief technique is like noticing the moment the magician distracts you. It does not ruin the trick. It just reminds you that attention is valuable, that emotions are tools, that timing matters. And the next time you find yourself saying yes too quickly, after almost missing a flight, or almost losing your wallet, or almost stepping in something unmentionable, you can pause. Ask if your yes is real, or just relief wearing a name tag. And if someone uses it on you, do not panic, just smile. You are a little wiser now, a little more tuned in. And if you ever get a message from your bank that says, urgent, we have locked your account, followed by, click here to verify, and you find yourself reaching for your wallet, take a breath, because that is not a real crisis. That is just a stranger trying to sell you a souvenir photo from a roller coaster you never boarded. The false consensus effect. Why you think everyone thinks like you? You are lying in bed, your body still, your brain still moving, and you think back to something you said earlier today. A joke, a comment, an opinion about pineapple on pizza, or whether socks belong in bed. You said it with confidence. No hesitation. Because deep down, you were pretty sure everyone agreed with you, or at least most people. Because why would they not? It is common sense. It is obvious. It is your opinion. And that is the beginning of the false consensus effect. The quiet little bias that convinces you that your beliefs, preferences, habits, and reactions are shared by most people. That your version of normal is just normal. That if you feel something, think something, vote a certain way, laugh at a certain thing, or roll your eyes at a certain trend, then surely most people do too. It is not arrogance. It is not stubbornness. It is a shortcut. Your brain, trying to simplify the messy business of being a person among other people, assumes your experience is a good blueprint. You use yourself as a reference point because you are the most familiar person you know. This is what makes the false consensus effect so sneaky. It does not feel like a bias. It feels like reason. You do not think, everyone must agree with me because I am right. You think, this just makes sense. Why would anyone see it differently? You see this everywhere. Someone speeds through a yellow light and thinks, everyone does this. Someone skips the gym and says, nobody really likes going anyway. Someone posts an opinion online and acts surprised when someone disagrees, as if the internet was a dinner party with carefully vetted guest lists. The false consensus effect is not just about opinions, it is about behavior. It makes you overestimate how many people share your habits, your values, your choices. If you drink coffee in the evening, you might assume others do too. If you ignore expiration dates, you figure most people are also fine with a little yogurt roulette. But here is the twist. The more personal or important something feels to you, the more you believe others agree. If you care deeply about an issue, recycling, screen time, how loud is too loud for chewing, you are more likely to believe it is widely agreed upon. Not because you are polling anyone, but because believing in consensus feels safe. Humans like belonging. We evolved in groups. Survival meant fitting in. So your brain, trying to protect you from isolation, sometimes fakes the sense of community. It tells you, you are not alone. Most people think like you, even if they do not. This gets even stranger in reverse. When someone disagrees with you strongly, you might think they are an outlier or just trying to be difficult. Because if your view is so reasonable, theirs must be the exception. And it gets even worse online. Algorithms are not built to challenge you. They are built to comfort you. They show you opinions you already agree with, jokes you already find funny, facts you already believe. And the more you scroll, the more it seems like the whole world sees it the same way, until you step outside your feed and realize it does not. This is not just about being wrong. It is about being surprised. The false consensus effect creates emotional shock when disagreement happens. Because you were not expecting it. You did not think you were expressing a minority view. So when someone pushes back, it feels jarring. Not just a difference of opinion, but a breach in the reality you thought you were sharing. It can make people defensive, confused, even angry. And it can lead to real-world consequences. In politics, it creates echo chambers. In workplaces, it shuts down new ideas. In relationships, it causes misunderstandings. One person assumes, of course we are on the same page, while the other is on a different chapter in an entirely different book. But it is not all bad. There is a reason your brain does this. It helps you function. It keeps you from second-guessing every single thought. It speeds up social decision-making. You walk into a room and assume people understand social cues, share basic norms, and will not bite you. Most of the time, that assumption is right. The problem starts when the assumption goes unchecked, when you believe it too hard, when you treat your own perspective as the default setting for everyone else. There is comfort in consensus. It makes your ideas feel valid. It makes your choices feel safe. But real life is messy. People are weird. And just because something feels obvious to you does not mean it is universal. Understanding the false consensus effect does not mean distrusting your instincts. It means being curious, asking questions, realizing that someone's disagreement is not an attack. It is a reminder that your brain, though brilliant, is a little biased. It also makes conversations more interesting. When you stop assuming everyone agrees, you start listening. You get surprised more. You learn more. You grow in the space between obviously and actually no. And sometimes, you will discover that your assumptions were not that far off. Many people might share your view, but now you know because you checked, not because your brain filled in the blanks with comforting guesses. And every so often, someone will tell you they see the world completely differently, that what feels normal to you is alien to them, that what seems like common sense is, to them, nonsense. And in those moments, if you are paying attention, you will feel your mind stretch just a little. Not in defeat, in curiosity. Because part of growing up, no matter how old you are, is learning that your experience is valid but not absolute. That your truth is not everyone's truth. That your normal is just one flavor in a very strange ice cream shop. And if you ever find yourself saying, well, everyone I know agrees with me, pause. That might be the false consensus effect knocking on your door with a clipboard and a smug little smile. It is just there to remind you that you might be right. But you might also just be loud in your own head. And if that makes you feel exposed, do not worry. Everyone feels that way. Probably. The bystander effect, why no one helps when everyone is watching. You are lying in bed, your body relaxed, your brain still replaying things. At some point during the day, you saw someone drop something in public. A phone, a grocery bag, a piece of dignity. Maybe you wanted to help, but you hesitated. You looked around. Other people saw it too. You waited for someone else to move. Nobody did. The moment passed. The item stayed on the ground. And you told yourself, someone else probably had it handled. That, right there, is the bystander effect. It is one of the most well-known psychological phenomena in the Book of Human Weirdness. A situation where the more people are present during an emergency or uncomfortable moment, the less likely anyone is to help. It seems backwards. You would think that more witnesses means more helping hands. But the opposite is often true. When people are alone, they are more likely to step in. But when people are in a group, they wait. They watch. They hope. They think, surely someone else will do something. And everyone else is thinking the exact same thing. This is called diffusion of responsibility, a lovely clinical term for that quiet mental shrug that says, not my job. It is not cruelty. It is not selfishness. It is psychology. It is the brain doing emotional math. You are one person among many. Your share of responsibility feels smaller. Your urgency dissolves in the group. And it does not just happen during emergencies. It happens at work, in meetings, in group chats. A question hangs in the air. Everyone sees it. Nobody answers, because each person assumes someone else will. And silence wins. The term bystander effect became widely known after a tragic event in 1964, when a woman named Kitty Genovese was murdered outside her apartment in New York. The story reported that dozens of people witnessed it, but no one called the police. That version of the event was exaggerated in the media, but it sparked decades of research into why people freeze when others are present. Psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley ran experiments to find out. In one study, participants sat in a room that began to fill with smoke. If they were alone, they usually left the room quickly to report it. If they were with others who seemed unconcerned, they stayed put, coughed, looked around, waited. Because if no one else is reacting, your brain starts to doubt your own senses. It is a weird kind of peer pressure, except nobody is pressuring you. You just read the room. You see stillness, so you become still. You see indifference, so you suppress concern. Your internal alarms dim, even when something is clearly wrong. This is why people film things instead of intervening, why they stare at their phones, why they do not make eye contact. It is not heartlessness, it is hesitation. It is uncertainty, mixed with fear of embarrassment, wrapped in the comfort of a crowd. And the bigger the crowd, the worse it gets. When you are the only person around and someone drops their wallet, your decision is simple, help or not. But when you are in a group, your role is harder to define. You become a background actor in a play that has not cast a lead. So nobody speaks, nobody moves. The moment drags on, awkward and quiet. And then the excuses arrive. You convince yourself that maybe it was not serious, maybe they are fine, maybe someone else already called for help, maybe you do not want to cause a scene, maybe you are just being polite by not getting involved. This happens so often that it feels normal. But it is not, because the truth is, most people do want to help. Most people are not ignoring pain. They are paralyzed by doubt. They are waiting for a signal, a first mover, someone to break the spell. And once that happens, the effect can reverse. One person helps, and suddenly everyone else follows. The crowd shifts from frozen to flowing. The spell breaks. The script changes. This is why being the first to help matters so much. Not just because of the act itself, but because it creates a ripple. A single decision rewrites the roles of everyone watching. Suddenly, they are not bystanders anymore. They are participants. The bystander effect is not limited to physical emergencies. It happens in conversations, in injustices, in moments when someone is being mistreated and the room goes quiet. You hear something inappropriate, but you look around first. You wait to see if someone else will say something, and when no one does, you stay silent too. It is not because you do not care. It is because caring in public takes courage. It takes energy. It takes a willingness to stand out, even just for a moment. And that is hard, especially when the world has trained you to blend in. But once you understand the bystander effect, it becomes easier to spot. You notice the freeze. You recognize the silence. You name the feeling. And maybe, just maybe, you become the one who acts. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it is a small thing. Picking something up, asking a question, saying, "Hey, that was not okay." The first step is rarely glamorous, but it is powerful, because it pulls the situation out of limbo. It gives others permission to follow. And sometimes people are just waiting for permission. This is not about being a hero. It is about being awake, present, willing. It is about pushing past the pause, the hesitation, the invisible contract that says, "Let someone else deal with this." Because you are someone else. You do not have to fix everything. You do not have to take over. But your presence matters. Your awareness matters. And sometimes, your tiny act of care is the thing that breaks the inertia for everyone else. The bystander effect teaches you something strange about humanity. That goodness does not always express itself when it is shared. That groups do not always make us braver. Sometimes they dilute us. Sometimes they drown out our instincts. But they do not have to. You can practice noticing. You can practice stepping forward. You can become more sensitive to that moment of frozen uncertainty. And with time, you get better at thawing it. And if you ever feel alone in that effort, remember, people are not uncaring. They are just waiting to see what the others do. Be the other who does something. And if you ever drop your groceries in public and everyone just walks past, do not worry. They probably thought someone else was going to help. And if that does not work, try dropping something louder next time, like a trumpet. The Scarcity Principal. Why you want what you think you cannot have. You are lying in bed, your day winding down, when you suddenly remember that thing you almost bought. It was limited edition, only 2 left. A little more expensive than you planned, but rare. Hard to find, maybe even the last one. You did not need it. You still do not need it. But now that you think it might be gone, you kind of want it more. That is the Scarcity Principle. It is a mental reflex, a psychological shortcut, and sometimes a very expensive shopping habit. It is the idea that things become more attractive when they are less available. That the harder something is to get, the more you feel like you should try to get it. Your brain does not love missing out. In fact, it hates it. It wants options, freedom, and the comfort of believing it could choose anything at any time. But when something suddenly becomes rare, limited time, sold out, last chance, your calm little brain goes into a mild panic. It tells you, this must be important. Look at how few there are. What if you miss it? What if everyone else grabs it first? It does not matter what the thing is. It could be a pair of shoes, a table at a restaurant, a spot in a yoga class, a toaster with anti-gravity settings. If there are only 3 left, it suddenly feels urgent, special, precious. This is the scarcity principle at work. It is not about value. It is about availability. When access is restricted, your brain assumes the thing must be valuable, not because it thought about it carefully, but because it reacted instinctively. Scarcity equals worth. This is not just about products. It is about people, experiences, time. A concert with one night only, a friend who is always busy, a vacation spot that is hard to get to. The less you can have it, the more you want it. And marketers know this. They put countdown timers on websites, flash sales. Only 5 left in stock. Sale ends at midnight. They use phrases like limited edition, members only, exclusive drop. They are not always lying, but they are definitely nudging. And your brain, bless its loyal pattern-seeking heart, responds on cue. You think, if I do not act now, I might lose my chance. And so you act. Not because you needed the thing, but because the possibility of not having it feels worse than the possibility of regretting the purchase later. This is how you end up with items you never planned to buy.
How you justify impulse decisions. How you explain to yourself while unboxing something strange that you did not really choose it. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But the scarcity principle is not just about shopping. It affects how we perceive people. Someone who is aloof, hard to reach, emotionally unavailable, they can become magnetic. Not because they are better, but because they are scarce. Their attention feels valuable because it is limited.
And when someone is always available, always ready, always around, we sometimes take it for granted. Not because they are less valuable, but because our brains are strange about access. The more something is around, the more ordinary it feels. The less it is around, the more we chase it. This shows up in relationships, in job offers, in tickets to anything, in vintage shops, in museums, in art, in friendships, in emotions, even in your own attention. The more you withhold something, the more people notice when you finally offer it. This is not because people are shallow, it is because brains are built for scarcity. In prehistoric life, if food was rare, you wanted it more. If shelter was limited, you fought harder. Scarcity meant survival. The urge is ancient, the bias is old, and now, in the modern world, it still kicks in, whether you are buying berries or bidding on a discontinued lamp. Even time gets this treatment. The fewer hours you have in a day, the more valuable they feel. A vacation with limited days feels precious. A weekend goes faster than a Wednesday. Time feels shorter when it is scheduled. Scarcity changes your relationship to it. This is also why people sometimes sabotage their own happiness. They believe they have more time, more chances, more options, until they do not. And then, suddenly, the thing they ignored feels irreplaceable. Scarcity flips the emotional switch from maybe later to must-have now. And that is not always a bad thing. Sometimes the scarcity principle reminds you of what matters, of what you have been overlooking, of what you might lose. It can sharpen your focus, help you make decisions, show you what you really care about. But it can also mislead you, make you chase things just because they are rare, make you pay too much, wait too long, or fight too hard for something you would not have wanted if it were freely available. This is the trick. Scarcity creates urgency, but urgency is not always clarity. Just because something is disappearing does not mean it is valuable. Just because something is popular does not mean it fits you. Just because something is rare does not mean it is right. But your brain does not know that right away. It reacts first. It thinks, last chance. And then your heart speeds up. Your reasoning slows down. And your hand hovers over the Add to Cart button like it is making a life decision. This is why your closet has a few questionable items you bought in a rush. Why you once RSVP'd to an event you had no intention of enjoying. Why you convinced yourself to buy a book you never opened just because it was a limited pressing. Scarcity does not just affect what you chase, it affects what you regret. You do not miss the thing itself. You miss the idea that you had a chance to have it. That version of the story where you said yes. And now, because you said no, the door feels closed. But here is the secret. Most doors open again. Most only a few left messages will appear again next week. Most one night only shows return in some other form. Most things that feel scarce are not. It is just your brain reacting to the idea of loss, not the reality. Understanding the scarcity principle gives you breathing room. It lets you pause and ask, do I actually want this? Or do I just hate not being allowed to have it? Because sometimes when something is always available, you think it will be there forever. And when something disappears, you convince yourself it was a treasure. But in both cases, it is not about the thing. It is about your relationship to access. You can still want the rare thing. You can still go after it. But now, you are aware of the voice in your head that shouts, "Act now." And sometimes you can smile, take a breath, and let the moment pass. Because not everything that disappears was meant for you. And if it was, it might come back around. Or, if it was that anti-gravity toaster, it probably never existed in the first place, unless it did, in which case you probably already added it to your cart. The Endowment Effect. Why you think your stuff is worth more than it probably is. You are lying in bed, the lights dim, your mind replaying the day in quiet flashes. Somewhere in that mental slideshow, you remember the old mug, the chipped one. It has a faded logo and a weird handle, but it is yours. You have had it forever. Someone once offered to buy it at a garage sale and you laughed. Because how could they not understand what it is worth? That is the Endowment Effect. It is the mental habit of assigning more value to things simply because they belong to you. Not because they are rare, not because they are beautiful, but because they are yours. And ownership, even imaginary ownership, changes everything. This effect is not about greed. It is not about being materialistic. It is about identity. Your stuff becomes part of your story. And once something enters your story, it becomes harder to part with, because now it feels like you would be losing a piece of yourself. You can see the endowment effect in the way people price things on online marketplaces. A used sofa with cat scratches and lopsided cushions listed at a price that could pay for a plane ticket. A 10-year-old laptop with the phrase "still works perfectly" and a price tag that suggests it also grants wishes. People are not trying to scam anyone. They honestly believe the item is worth that much, because it was theirs. This bias begins early. Children form attachments to certain toys that are not objectively better than others. But once they think of the toy as mine, its value rises. They might reject an identical replacement. Because the original is not just an object, it is a piece of territory, a symbol, a comfort. Adults are not much different. You feel it when someone borrows something and does not return it the exact way you left it. You feel it when a stranger criticizes your car, your house, your jacket. You are not just defending an object, you are defending a little corner of your identity. The endowment effect even shows up in experiments. Researchers gave people a mug and asked them how much they would sell it for. Then they gave the same mug to another group and asked how much they would pay to buy it. The sellers wanted more than twice as much as the buyers were willing to pay. Same mug, different perception. The only difference was who owned it. Ownership adds emotional weight. It adds memory. It adds meaning. That old sweater, it has been with you through breakups and snowstorms. That worn-out chair, you sat in it when you were happy, when you were sad, when you stayed up too late watching movies you pretended you had never seen before. But the moment something belongs to someone else, it loses its sparkle. You walk past garage sales filled with other people's treasures, and all you see is clutter. Because meaning does not transfer. Not automatically. It has to be earned, felt, lived. And this is where the endowment effect can get tricky. Because sometimes, it makes you hold on to things you do not need. Stuff that takes up space, objects you never use. But you cannot let them go, because they are yours, and yours means important, even if you are not sure why. You tell yourself stories to justify the attachment. I might need this someday. It has sentimental value. I paid good money for this. And while those things might be true, sometimes they are just cover stories, disguises. Tiny protective lies your brain tells so it does not have to say goodbye. It also shows up in relationships, in projects, in decisions. The more effort you have invested in something, the more you believe it is valuable, even if it no longer serves you, even if you would never choose it again. But it is yours, and that is hard to walk away from. You see this in job roles people do not like but cannot leave. In habits that no longer fit but feel too familiar to break. In creative projects you know are not working, but you keep tinkering with them anyway. Because you started them. Because they belong to you. Ownership is sticky. It changes how you judge, how you price, how you feel. And sometimes it clouds your thinking. The endowment effect is not rational. It is emotional. It is the same reason someone will reject a lower offer for their used car, even when it matches the market value. The same reason a collector will ask a ridiculous price for an item they have owned for years and never used. The same reason someone might fight harder to keep something than they ever did to get it in the first place. It is not about the object. It is about what the object represents. It says, "This is mine," and underneath that, "This is me." This effect can also be flipped. If you want someone to value something more, give them a sense of ownership. Let them hold it. Use it. Picture it in their life. Car dealers do this all the time. Take it for a spin. Once you imagine the thing as yours, your brain shifts. The value rises. It is not theoretical anymore. It is emotional. And once emotions are involved, logic takes a nap. But knowing this does not make you immune. It just makes you aware. You can ask yourself, do I love this thing, or do I love that it is mine? Would I buy it again today? Or am I just protecting a memory I do not want to lose? Sometimes, letting go of something you once valued is not wasteful. It is freeing. It creates space. It tells your brain, I am not my stuff. And that lesson, while hard, can be quietly powerful. Other times, you might keep the object. And that is fine too. Because not everything has to be logical. Some things are worth keeping just because they remind you of who you were, who you have become, where you have been. The endowment effect is not a flaw, it is a mirror. It shows you what you cling to, what you value, what you are afraid to lose. And if you ever find yourself arguing that your broken coffee table is worth $200 because it has character, just remember, someone else is out there arguing that their toaster oven is vintage because it has not worked since 2008. The contrast principle, why something looks better or worse, depending on what comes before it. You are lying in bed, thinking about that shirt you tried on earlier. It looked great in the store, perfect even. And now? In your bedroom mirror, it looks a little off, like it borrowed your shape and gave nothing back. You frown. You wonder what changed. The lighting, the angle, or maybe the shirt you tried before it. That is the contrast principle. It is a sneaky little mental trick your brain plays, where your perception of something is shaped by what came just before. You do not judge things in isolation. You judge them in sequence, in context. A $10 burger feels expensive after a $5 burger, but cheap after a $20 one. A compliment sounds sweeter after a criticism. A lukewarm bath feels hot if your feet were just cold. This is how your brain makes sense of the world, by comparing. It is not interested in objective truth. It wants relative position, up or down, better or worse, more or less. And the first thing you see sets the tone for everything after. Imagine you walk into a house that smells like burnt popcorn. Then someone lights a cinnamon candle. Suddenly, that candle smells like a miracle. But if the house had smelled like fresh-baked cookies, the same candle would have seemed boring. That is the contrast principle. The order changes the impact. This shows up in decisions. You see it when a salesperson shows you the most expensive thing first. Suddenly, the next item feels like a bargain, even if it is still overpriced. Your brain is not thinking, is this worth the price? It is thinking, at least it is not as bad as the last one. This also happens in dating. You meet someone wonderful, kind, funny, stable, but your last date was an absolute disaster. So this one seems amazing, too amazing. You start fantasizing about wedding playlists before dessert. You are not just falling for them, you are rebounding off the contrast. The contrast principle does not just affect perception, it affects emotions. A mediocre day feels great after a terrible one. A small win feels enormous after a string of failures. Your happiness rises or falls not just with your situation, but with what your situation followed. You buy a pair of shoes on sale for $80. Originally they were $200. You feel victorious. But if you had seen them marked down from $100, that same $80 would feel like less of a deal. The price did not change. The contrast did. Your brain is trying to save time. It does not want to evaluate everything from scratch. So it compares. And sometimes that shortcut works, but sometimes it leads you into strange territory. This is why movie trailers always start with something terrible: chaos, despair, a global crisis, and then hope, courage, one person rising against the odds. The hope looks brighter because of the darkness that came before. That is contrast at the theater level. It is also why some people seem more charming in groups. You meet them surrounded by louder, ruder friends, and suddenly they shine. You think, this one seems different, special, possibly enlightened. But if you had met them alone, you might not have noticed anything extraordinary. The same person can seem wise or average, bold or annoying, depending on the company they keep. That is the contrast principle sliding into your social life. You can see it in food too. A decent cup of coffee tastes divine after a terrible cup. But after a perfect one, it might taste flat. This is not about taste buds. It is about sequence. Your brain adjusts expectations with every sip. The same thing happens with noise. Silence feels deeper after chaos. A quiet room after a loud street makes you sigh. But if the silence was always there, you would not notice it at all. You also feel the contrast principle in compliments. One kind word after harsh criticism lands like a gift. The same compliment after a dozen others might not even register. Timing shapes meaning. Order rewrites intensity.
Even your energy follows this rule. After a busy week, doing nothing feels amazing. After a lazy week, doing nothing feels heavy. You are the same. The moment is the same. But your experience of it is shaped by what came before, and this is where things get complicated. Because once you realize how much contrast shapes perception, you start questioning your own judgment.
Do you really love this movie? Or was the last one just that bad? Do you really want that job offer? Or are you just comparing it to rejection? That does not mean your feelings are false. It means they are layered, contextual, influenced. And the contrast principle is one of those invisible influences that rarely introduces itself. It just slips into the room and changes the lighting, and it works both ways. Bad can feel worse after good. A small inconvenience can ruin your day if it follows a streak of perfect ones. You spill coffee after a good morning, and suddenly it feels like a betrayal. But if your whole day was chaotic, the same spill might barely register. Your brain anchors itself to the first thing it sees, the first taste, the first impression, and everything else adjusts accordingly. The contrast principle does not ask for permission. It just rearranges your scale. This is not a flaw. It is a function. It is how you survive a world filled with too many options, too many comparisons, too many things asking for attention. Your brain needs shortcuts. Contrast is one of them. But knowing about it gives you power. You can ask, am I judging this thing fairly, or just reacting to what came before? You can pause before rejecting something that followed a high, or before accepting something that followed a low. You can remember that the order of experiences matters more than you think. That a bad sandwich after a worse one might still be a bad sandwich. That a person who seems kind after a cruel one might still just be average. That a job offer that follows 3 rejections might not be your dream job. It might just be the first one to say yes. And that is okay. You are not trying to eliminate bias. You are trying to understand it, to live with it, to smile at your brain and say, I see what you are doing. Thank you for trying to help. And if you ever find yourself buying a mediocre blender because the first one they showed you looked like it belonged in a spaceship, remember, you are not alone. You just got contrast coded into overpaying for mediocrity. At least it has buttons. The Horn Effect. Why one bad trait can cloud everything else. You are lying in bed, thinking about someone you met recently. Maybe it was at work, or at dinner, or in line at the pharmacy while deciding whether you needed vitamins or a personality reboot. They seemed fine at first, normal. But then, they did something small. They interrupted, they bragged, they chewed loudly, something tiny. And suddenly, you could not see them the same way. That is the Horn Effect. It is the quiet, often unconscious way one negative trait, flaw, or moment can color everything else about a person. It turns one small bad thing into a lens, a filter, a shadow. You do not just see what they did, you start seeing them through it. It is like dropping a tiny bit of ink in clear water. The whole glass changes color. Not dramatically, not instantly, but enough to change how it feels. The Horn Effect is the evil twin of the halo effect, where the halo effect makes people seem better than they are based on one good trait. The Horn Effect does the opposite. It amplifies the bad. It makes you doubt everything else. It takes one flaw and lets it drive the car. Someone shows up late once and suddenly they are unreliable. Someone makes one awkward joke and now they are socially off. Someone mispronounces a word and your brain whispers, "Are they really that smart?" The moment sticks. The impression hardens, and you start looking for confirmation. The Horn Effect is not about logic, it is about feeling. You feel put off, so your brain goes looking for reasons to justify that feeling. It finds other small things, a weird shirt, a strange laugh, an opinion you would normally ignore, and it says, "See? I was right." It is not that the person changed, it is that your perception did, and once that shift happens, it is hard to shift back. This bias shows up everywhere. In interviews, in classrooms, in relationships. You notice one thing you do not like, and it starts to weigh more than it should. It tips the scale. It makes you question things that have nothing to do with the original flaw. A student gets a bad grade early on, and the teacher assumes they are lazy. Even when they do well later, that first impression lingers. A job applicant looks nervous, and the interviewer assumes they are unqualified. A neighbor has loud wind chimes, and suddenly you think they are inconsiderate in every area of life. The Horn Effect turns people into caricatures. It reduces complexity, it simplifies, which in a way feels efficient, easier, but it is not accurate. It is not fair, and it usually says more about your brain than it does about them. This happens because your mind likes consistency. It wants people to make sense. And when something feels off, it looks for other things to match the feeling. It builds a narrative around that discomfort. One crack becomes the whole wall. The Horn Effect also sticks because of memory. Negative impressions are more vivid. They leave a mark. Your brain is designed to remember threats, problems, mistakes. It keeps you safe, but it also makes you suspicious, judgmental, unforgiving over things that might not matter in the long run. And that can keep you from seeing people clearly, from giving second chances, from learning something new about someone you have already mentally filed away. You think you are being logical, but you are not. You are just letting that one thing speak louder than it should. And it goes further. Once the Horn Effect kicks in, you might start behaving differently toward the person. More cold, more distant, more critical. And they feel that. They respond. The whole relationship starts shifting based on a moment that neither of you remembers clearly anymore. The Horn Effect is also contagious. You tell someone else, "I do not really like them. Something about them rubs me the wrong way." And now that person is primed to look for flaws too. The bad impression spreads like gossip with a diploma. And this does not only apply to people. It works with brands, with places, with experiences. You try a new restaurant, and the waiter is slow. Now the food tastes worse. The lighting feels off. The music is annoying. A single flaw redefines everything else. That vacation spot where your hotel lost your reservation? Suddenly the beach was too crowded, the coffee too bitter, the sun too bright. The horn effect does not stop at people. It can attach to anything. But the hardest part? Once it locks in, it is hard to unlock. Because your brain wants to be right. It wants consistency. And it is easier to keep believing someone is annoying than to admit that maybe, just maybe, they were having an off day and you took it personally. The good news is, you can override it. You can notice when it is happening. You can ask, am I judging the whole person based on one moment? One trait? One awkward email? You can look for signs that your opinion is more about how you felt than what they did. You can also practice patience. Give people room to unfold. Let the story grow past the first page. Because most people are not all bad or all good. They are mixed, like everyone else, including you. Think about how many times you have been misunderstood. How many times you hoped someone would see past your bad day, your flat joke, your bad haircut. You wanted them to zoom out, to wait, to see the rest of you. You can do that for others. You can also laugh at how easily your brain gets tricked, how one flaw becomes a plot twist, how a single sock on the floor can ruin an entire romantic evening, how someone's ringtone can shape your whole opinion of their personality, because the horn effect is not about truth. It is about speed, fast judgment, quick reactions, shortcuts, and sometimes it is just your brain trying to protect you from disappointment. But people deserve more than a shortcut. They deserve context. They deserve updates. And if you ever find yourself writing someone off because they said espresso instead of I espresso, take a breath. You have probably said library once or twice, and nobody held a grudge about that, except maybe the librarians. The halo effect. Why one good trait makes everything else shine. You are lying in bed, your thoughts winding down, drifting like little paper boats across the surface of sleep. And then you remember someone from earlier today. Maybe they held the door open for you. Maybe they smiled in a way that felt warm and expensive. Maybe they just wore a jacket that made them look like they knew things, important things, about weather, about jazz, about where to find the best bread in the city. Whatever it was, you noticed one good thing about them, and suddenly everything else seemed good too. That is the halo effect. It is your brain's habit of taking one positive trait and letting it light up the rest of the person like a string of holiday lights. One kind gesture, one charming feature, one impressive credential, and suddenly they are generous, brilliant, honest, competent, funny, organized, probably a good cook, possibly kind to animals, and maybe even spiritually enlightened. The halo effect is not about reason. It is about vibes. You feel good about one thing and that feeling spills over everything else. You are not evaluating the whole person. You are just basking in the glow of one shiny detail. It is the mental version of watching someone strike one beautiful piano chord and assuming they can play Beethoven blindfolded. Maybe they can. Or maybe they only know that one chord. But your brain already filled in the rest of the symphony. You see this everywhere. In school, students who are attractive or confident are often assumed to be smarter. In job interviews, a firm handshake or a crisp resume can make the rest of the candidates shine. In courtrooms, people with nicer suits are often judged more favorably. Not because of the facts, but because of the first impression. It even happens in restaurants. If the lighting is perfect, the music soft, and the waiter says, sparkling or still like a gentle poet, your food tastes better. Even if it is just warm lettuce disguised as a salad. The halo effect lifts the whole experience. The opposite is also true. If someone makes a great first impression, you might ignore red flags. You excuse them. You say things like, they were just tired. They are under a lot of pressure. That is not like them. And maybe that is true. Or maybe you are protecting the halo. The halo effect can be sweet, but it can also be sneaky. It makes you trust people who seem trustworthy before they have earned it. It makes you overlook flaws that would be obvious in someone else. It makes you buy things, follow advice, vote a certain way, All because your brain decided early on that someone seemed good. The psychologist Edward Thorndike coined the term in 1920 after noticing that military officers tended to rate their subordinates consistently across traits. If a soldier seemed neat and disciplined, they also got high marks in intelligence, leadership, and loyalty. But these traits were not actually linked. It was just the halo effect glowing in the margins. This happens because your brain is trying to save energy. It does not want to analyze every trait separately, so it uses one trait as a shortcut. Good here? Probably good there too. Seems smart? Probably kind. Looks nice? Probably skilled. The most classic example is physical attractiveness. People who are conventionally good-looking are often assumed to be more intelligent, more capable, more ethical, more fun. Not because they proved it, but because their face made a good first impression. It is the logic of beauty equals goodness, and it is deeply baked into human judgment. But the halo effect is not just about appearance. It can come from voice, posture, education, kindness, confidence, even timing. Someone helps you carry your groceries, and later you trust their opinion on global finance. Not because they said anything smart, just because your brain stamped them as helpful, and helpful became everything else. You are not always aware of this bias. It operates quietly. You walk away from a conversation and say, "They just seemed impressive." But you cannot explain why. That is the halo. It does not need evidence. It just shines. And once it shines, it stays. That is the tricky part. The halo effect is sticky. Once your brain labels someone as good, it clings to that label. Even when they mess up. Even when they disappoint you. You find ways to explain the failure without adjusting the label. You protect your original impression. This is why some people get more chances than others. More trust, more praise, more applause for the same effort. Their halo does the heavy lifting. It is also why people fall so hard in early relationships. You are dazzled by one part of the person, a laugh, a story, a shared interest in obscure jazz fusion bands, and then your brain fills in the rest. You see potential, depth, compatibility. And later, when reality arrives, it is jarring. Not because the person changed, but because the halo started to fade. But the halo effect does not only affect others. It affects how you see yourself. You do something good. Someone compliments you. And suddenly, you feel brighter, taller, like someone who drinks more water and reads biographies. You act differently. You walk with a little extra wind in your spine. You become, for a moment, the version of yourself you hope to be. That is the kind of illusion worth holding on to sometimes. Because the halo effect is not always a trick. Sometimes it just shows how powerful a little goodness can be. One kind word, one thoughtful gesture, one shining trait, and everything else feels a little warmer. But it is still a bias, and like all biases, it deserves your attention. Not to destroy it, but to understand it. To know when you are being swayed, when your judgment is softened. When you are giving someone credit they have not earned, or denying it to someone else just because they lack the sparkle. You can ask yourself, am I seeing the whole person, or just the part that shines? Would I feel the same if they were less confident, less charming, less well-lit? And if you can answer that with honesty, you are already doing better than most. Because the halo effect will always be there. It will always glow around people who seem impressive. But now you know what it is. Now you can see the wires behind the light. And if you ever find yourself deeply trusting someone just because they use a fountain pen and have a great laugh, pause. They might still be wrong. Even if they look like they read books in candlelight and smell like cedar and justice. The status quo bias, why you stick with what you know, even when it makes no sense. You are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about your toothpaste. Not in a dramatic way. Just mildly aware that you have been using the same brand since high school. You do not love it. It is just fine. There are probably better options. Whiter, mintier, less gritty, but you never switched. Not because of loyalty, just because it is what you always buy. That is the status quo bias. It is your brain's deep, almost irrational preference for things to stay the same, to keep the current setup, to avoid change, unless change absolutely kicks down the door wearing a name tag and holding a clipboard. The status quo bias is not just about toothpaste, it is about everything. It is the reason you stay in that job you do not love. The reason you keep that subscription you barely use. The reason you keep sitting on the squeaky chair instead of dragging a better one from the other room. Not because you like it squeaky, but because the idea of switching feels heavier than the sound itself. It is a bias that makes the current thing seem safer, better, or at least less risky, purely because it is already happening. It is already in motion, already selected, and your brain, clever and tired, whispers, "Let us not make this harder than it needs to be." This bias is not about laziness. It is about the hidden cost of decision-making. Every change requires effort, energy, mental resources, and your brain, built for survival more than innovation, likes conserving resources, so it prefers the path of least resistance. And the least resistance is usually what you are already doing. You see it in everyday choices. You go to the same coffee shop even though a new one opened down the street. You order the same sandwich. You use the same password. You wear the same 3 shirts. Not because they are perfect, but because they are familiar. And familiar feels like safe. The status quo bias shows up in studies too. In one experiment, people were more likely to keep the default retirement plan even when better options were available, simply because the default was already selected. The same applies to organ donation. Countries where people are automatically donors unless they opt out have much higher participation than those where you have to actively sign up. People stick with what is handed to them. This bias also sneaks into relationships, into routines, into beliefs. You hold on to ideas long past their expiration date because they are yours. You defend habits just because they have been around a while. You say things like, "This is how I have always done it," as if tradition were a reliable compass. But sometimes tradition is just a pattern wearing a crown, and your brain likes patterns. They make life feel predictable, safe, like walking down a hallway where the lights come on automatically, one step at a time. But changing the hallway, that means risking the dark. So your brain resists, even when the change is small, even when the benefits are clear, even when part of you knows the current way is not working. The status quo bias is strong. It is sticky. It makes the present feel more trustworthy than the unknown, even if the unknown holds something better. It tells you, better the devil you know. But sometimes the devil you know is just really bad at his job. This bias also grows with age, with stress, with time. The more invested you are in something, the harder it is to let go. The more years you have spent in a situation, the more weight your brain gives it, even if that situation is draining you like a phone stuck on 3%. The status quo bias is not about logic. It is about emotional inertia. You do not just fear change, you fear regret. You worry that if you switch and it goes wrong, you will blame yourself. But if you stay where you are, even if it is not great, at least you cannot be blamed for making a bad choice. You just kept going. But here is the trick. Doing nothing is also a decision. Keeping the same path is still a choice. And sometimes, it is the riskier one. Because not all stability is safe. Sometimes the cost of staying put grows quietly, like mold behind wallpaper. It does not scream. It does not crash. It just settles in. It becomes normal. Until one day you look around and wonder why everything feels a little dim. The status quo bias keeps people in cities they do not love, jobs they do not care about, relationships they outgrew, ideas they never questioned. All because the idea of changing feels worse than the quiet disappointment of staying. It is the mental version of staring at a microwave with 10 seconds left and doing nothing. You know you could stop it. You know it will beep. But stopping it feels like effort, like responsibility. So you let it run, because that is easier than acting. But easy is not always good. Sometimes the status quo is just a rut with good marketing. And yet, knowing about this bias can help. You can pause and ask, if I were starting from scratch, would I choose this? Would you choose that toothpaste again? That schedule? That rule you follow because someone told you it mattered? If the answer is no, then the only reason you are sticking with it might be that it is already here. And that is not a great reason. But you do not need to overhaul your life overnight. You can start small. One drawer, one habit, one sandwich. Change does not have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. You can give yourself permission to try something new. Not because the old thing was bad, but because you want to be awake again, to choose again, to remember what it feels like to be active in your own decisions. Because your life is not a museum of preferences you picked 10 years ago. You can update the exhibit. You can change the lights. You can toss the toothpaste. And if you ever catch yourself saying, I do not love this, but I am used to it, pause. That might just be your brain trying to microwave your whole life with 10 seconds left on the clock. It will beep eventually. Might as well hit stop. The sleeper effect. Why messages from unreliable sources become convincing over time. You are lying in bed, scrolling through your thoughts like old voicemails you forgot to delete. One of them is a strange idea you heard weeks ago, maybe in a video, maybe from someone at a party. At the time you thought, that cannot be right. But now, you are not so sure. It feels familiar. It feels kind of true. You cannot remember where you heard it, but it has started to sink in. That is the sleeper effect. It is a psychological phenomenon where a message from an unreliable or questionable source becomes more persuasive over time. Not because the message got better, but because you forgot who said it. Your brain, like a polite guest at a chaotic dinner party, separates the message from the messenger. At first, it judges both together. This is nonsense, and the person saying it is clearly just guessing. But give it some time, maybe a week, maybe a month, and that same idea starts to sound reasonable. The source fades. The message stays. And suddenly, you are quoting something you once rolled your eyes at. The sleeper effect is not about gullibility. It is about timing. When you hear a message, your brain attaches it to the source. If the source is weak, untrustworthy, biased, silly, that discredits the message. But as time passes, the source becomes harder to remember. It blurs. Meanwhile, the message stays sharp. It floats around your memory, untethered, looking for a home. And eventually, you adopt it. It is like hearing a rumor from a guy who always gets things wrong. You dismiss it. But weeks later, the rumor returns in your mind. Just the content, not the guy. And now it sounds like something you knew all along. This is the sneaky power of the sleeper effect. It turns bad information into believable information, not immediately but slowly, quietly, like a seed planted in bad soil that still somehow grows. The effect has been studied for decades. In one classic experiment, researchers gave people a persuasive message paired with a reliable source. Another group got the same message, but from a clearly biased or untrustworthy source. At first, the people who heard it from the credible source were more convinced. But over time, say 4 weeks, the persuasion levels equalized. The people who heard the message from the unreliable source became just as likely to believe it, because the source had faded, but the message had not. This is why misinformation works even when people recognize it at first. A headline seems false. A claim sounds ridiculous. You think, who would believe that? And then, weeks later, someone repeats it with confidence. Maybe that someone is you. Because the mind does not store everything evenly. It trims the details. It compresses the file. And source credibility is one of the first things to go. You see this in advertising. A celebrity you do not trust promotes a product. You laugh. But the message, this cream makes your skin glow, sticks. And a month later, when you are browsing shelves, That same product feels familiar, maybe even appealing. You do not remember the sketchy ad. You just remember the glow. You see it in politics. A pundit makes a wild claim. You dismiss it as noise. But the claim lodges itself in your memory. You forget the context. You forget the spin. But the idea remains. It becomes part of the background hum. You even see it in casual conversation. A friend says something strange. You know, cold showers boost your immune system. You laugh. You call them dramatic. But days later, standing under a chilly stream, you think, maybe this is good for me. You forgot the source. You kept the message. This does not mean your brain is broken. It means it is efficient. It holds on to what feels useful. Over time, it forgets where the information came from. And that opens the door for the sleeper effect to stroll in wearing yesterday's headlines. It is important to know this, because it explains why some ideas gain power without gaining truth. Why conspiracy theories linger. Why catchy but wrong slogans survive. Why someone says something once and it echoes for years. The message outlives the messenger, and the more time passes, the harder it is to trace the message back to its origin. The idea becomes ambient, familiar, like background music you cannot turn off because you do not even notice it playing anymore. This is not always dangerous. Sometimes it works in your favor. A motivational quote from a cheesy poster might inspire you one day, not because you believe in the poster, but because the words hit at the right moment. The source fades, the message stays, and if the message helps, you are not going to question the font it arrived in. But when it comes to facts, to beliefs, to decisions, this bias matters, because you might be making choices based on information you no longer trust, from sources you would not listen to today, based on messages you would have dismissed if they were fresh. And your brain does not flag these things. It does not say, by the way, this idea came from that guy who thinks pigeons work for the government. It just hands you the idea like a leftover stored in a mystery container. You do not remember when you made it, but here it is. Smells fine. Must be good. So what can you do? You can check your thoughts. When an idea floats into your head, especially if it sounds suspiciously catchy, you can pause and ask, where did this come from? If the answer is, I do not remember, that does not make it false, but it does make it worth checking. You can also be slower to absorb ideas. Let them sit. Let them pass the who said this and why test before letting them unpack and move in. Because not every message deserves permanent residence. And when you hear something from a source you distrust, do not assume the idea will disappear on its own. It might sneak back later, dressed differently, talking softly, hoping you forgot where it came from. Because that is how the sleeper effect works. It is not loud. It is not immediate. It is not a slap. It is a whisper. And whispers, repeated long enough, sound like your own thoughts. You do not need to be paranoid, just curious, just awake. And if you ever find yourself confidently repeating a fact, and someone asks where you heard it, and you honestly cannot say, pause. That might just be a souvenir from a salesman you did not trust, tucked into your pocket when you were not looking. And if the fact sounds suspiciously like something your cousin Steve said at Thanksgiving, the same cousin who once tried to explain how gravity is optional on weekends, it might be worth a second look. The foot in the door technique, how saying yes once, makes you say yes again. You are lying in bed, warm under the covers when you remember the favor. The small one, the harmless one. Someone asked you to water their plants while they were out of town. You said yes. It felt easy. 2 succulents and a cactus. No big deal. But then, 2 days later, they added, could you also check my mail? Then it became, would you mind feeding my cat? Then, could you also bring in a package? And before you knew it, you were scrubbing a litter box in someone else's apartment, humming to a cat that was judging you. That is the foot in the door technique. It is a psychological strategy where someone starts by asking you for something small, something easy to say yes to, and then follows up with a larger request. The goal is not the first request. It is the second one. But getting your foot in the door with something small increases the chances you will say yes again. This happens because of something very human. Once you say yes to something, your brain starts to see yourself as a helpful person, cooperative, agreeable. That self-image matters. And when the next request comes, saying no feels like breaking character. Your identity does not like conflict. It wants consistency. So it nudges you to keep saying yes, because that is what a helpful person would do. And you already decided you are one. It does not feel like manipulation. It feels like politeness. But it is not always about kindness. It is about compliance. A soft, sneaky, strategic kind of compliance. Psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser studied this in the 1960s. In one experiment, they asked people to put a small sticker in their window that said, "Be a safe driver." Harmless. Weeks later, they came back and asked those same people to put a giant, ugly sign in their front yard with the same message. And guess what? The people who said yes to the sticker were far more likely to agree to the sign. Not because they loved road safety, but because they already saw themselves as someone who supports it. The small request paved the road. The big one just followed the path. This is how the technique works. It warms you up. It primes your identity. It opens the door and then gently steps inside before you realize it was never just about the sticker. You see this everywhere. In sales, it starts with free samples. You accept the sample, and then they ask if you want to try a full-size version. And then they ask if you want to subscribe. Suddenly, you are on a mailing list, and you have a drawer full of fancy nut butters you do not remember buying. You see it in relationships. Someone asks, "Can you help me move a lamp?" Sure, 5 minutes. Easy. Then they ask for the couch. Then the bed. Then emotional support while they unpack their childhood trauma. You see it at work. A manager asks if you can stay 10 minutes late. Then it becomes 20. Then it becomes, "Can you take over this project?" You say yes again and again, not because the requests make sense, but because you are already on the yes train and you do not know where the brakes are. This is not always bad. The technique can be used kindly. Therapists use it to encourage progress. Teachers use it to build engagement. Friends use it to help each other grow. The danger comes when it is used without your awareness. When someone is stacking requests, like pancakes, and you are just nodding along, thinking you are being generous when really, you are just being gradually worn down. The foot in the door technique works because of momentum. Each yes builds on the last. You feel committed, you feel involved, and once you are involved, you are more likely to keep going. It is the same logic behind trial offers, loyalty programs, and asking someone to just sign this petition before asking for a donation. Your brain likes to think it is making independent decisions, but sometimes it is just finishing a pattern it already started. And here is the thing. This works even when you are aware of it. Even when you know someone is using the technique, you might still say yes, because your self-image is powerful. And saying no feels like backtracking, like betraying the version of yourself that already agreed once. You want to be consistent. But consistency, while admirable, is also how people end up doing things they never planned to do, because it started small and it never felt like the moment to stop. This is how someone ends up house-sitting for a week when all they agreed to was watering a plant. It is how you find yourself running an errand that started as just a quick favor. It is how a tiny yes turns into a tangled mess. But knowing the foot in the door technique gives you a tool. You can pause. You can ask yourself, if this second request came first, would I still say yes? If the answer is no, then your first yes is not a free pass. It is a trap door, and you can still step off it. You can still say, that is a bigger ask, and I need to think about it. Because saying no does not make you inconsistent. It makes you intentional. The technique also works in reverse. If you want someone to help with something big, start small. Ask for something light, something easy to agree to. Let that yes warm up the path. You are not tricking them. You are just meeting them where they are and helping them walk towards something larger, one step at a time. Because the same technique that manipulates can also support. It depends on how you use it. But your awareness is the key. Once you recognize it, you can choose. You are not stuck on the yes train. You can step off. You can ask questions. You can say, "That is beyond what I agreed to," and you do not need to explain yourself. The foot in the door technique thrives on momentum, but it only works if you keep walking. You can stop. You can decide that watering plants is your limit. And if someone says, "But you already helped," you can smile and say, "Yes, and that was then. This is now." Because your kindness is not a subscription, it is a choice. And if you ever find yourself brushing someone else's cat while also sorting their mail and fixing their curtain rod, just remember, that first request was a succulent. You are now running a zoo. The Barnum Effect. Why you think vague statements are deep truths about you. You are lying in bed, the room quiet, your mind floating somewhere between the memory of brushing your teeth and a vague plan to finally sort out your email inbox tomorrow. Maybe. And then you remember that time someone read your horoscope, or a personality quiz, or a fortune cookie. Something simple, something generic, and somehow it felt true, spooky even, like it had reached into your soul and nodded. That is the Barnum Effect. It is the psychological trick where people believe vague, general statements are highly accurate descriptions of themselves, even when those same statements could apply to almost anyone. Your brain reads it, recognizes a sliver of itself, and says, "Yes, that is so me." Never mind that 15 other people just said the same thing. It gets its name from P.T. Barnum, the showman who allegedly said there is a sucker born every minute. Whether he said it or not is debatable. But what stuck is the idea that people will see truth in things designed to sound true to everyone. A psychologist named Bertram Forer ran a famous experiment in 1948. He gave his students a personality test. Then he gave them a unique analysis based on their answers, or so they thought. What he actually gave each of them was the exact same paragraph, generic, vague. Stuff like, "You have a great need for others to like and admire you," and "You have a tendency to be critical of yourself." The students rated the accuracy on a scale. Most gave it a high score, because it felt personal. It was not, but it felt that way. And feelings, as it turns out, do not always care about logic. This is the Barnum Effect at work. A vague statement with a sprinkle of flattery and just enough wiggle room to land somewhere near your emotional zip code. It does not need to be precise. It just needs to feel familiar. You see this in horoscopes. Today, you may feel conflicted, yet hopeful. Yes, that is called being alive. You see it in personality tests that tell you that you are unique, but also relatable, curious but grounded, logical yet passionate. They cover all the bases, and your brain picks out the ones that fit. You see it in palm readings, in fortune cookies, in online quizzes that promise to tell you what type of pasta best matches your inner energy. You laugh, but then you read the result, and you think, "Yes, I am absolutely a penne, strong, structured, emotionally absorbent." This effect works because your brain is wired for pattern recognition. It wants to find meaning, connection, even in randomness, especially in randomness. And when a statement sounds just close enough to the truth, your mind fills in the rest. It is not that you are gullible, it is that you are human. And being human means wanting to feel seen. The Barnum Effect plays on that need. It offers a mirror, and even if the reflection is fuzzy, your brain sharpens it. You fill in the details. You say, "That line about being misunderstood? That is from when I was 11 and nobody appreciated my art." The description did not say that. You did. You brought the meaning. You turned the ink blot into a memory. And that is where the power lies. The Barnum Effect is not about the statement. It is about the reader, you. It also helps that most Barnum-style statements are positive. A little vague praise, a little emotional insight, enough flattery to slip under your skepticism, enough balance to sound realistic. Sometimes you feel insecure, but you have strong instincts and care deeply about the people close to you. Congratulations, you are a mammal. Even negative traits, when written vaguely enough, feel like compliments in disguise. You can be too hard on yourself. You have high expectations. These are weaknesses wrapped in ambition. You feel seen, but not exposed. And because the statements are usually written in second person, you are the type of person who, they speak directly to you. They create intimacy. They feel like a whisper meant only for your ears, even if those ears are just one of 1,000 hearing the same message. This effect is useful if you want people to like you. If you want to sound wise, just say something vague but emotionally rich. You are someone who has been through a lot, but you keep going. That will hit almost anyone who has ever had a Wednesday. It is also how cold reading works, a technique used by mentalists and psychics. They make educated guesses based on appearance, body language, and universal statements that sound personal. I sense that you carry a burden. Yes, probably your laptop, your childhood, and your unpaid bills. The Barnum Effect can feel magical, but it can also be dangerous. Because not all vague statements come with good intentions. Some are used to manipulate. Advertisers write copy that flatters you into trusting them. Cult leaders use language that sounds insightful but says very little. The journey to truth begins within. That could mean anything or nothing, but it sounds deep, and sounding deep is sometimes enough. The effect also appears in politics. Campaign speeches full of vague promises that sound personal. We believe in the values that matter to you. What values? Whose values? The words are placeholders, and you fill them with your own meaning. That is the Barnum Effect. You project your hopes onto their sentences, and they let you. This is why it helps to ask yourself, could this apply to almost anyone? Does it actually say anything specific? Or is it just wrapping paper with no gift inside? Knowing the Barnum Effect does not stop it from working, but it gives you distance. Perspective. You can enjoy the horoscope without reorganizing your day around it. You can laugh at the quiz that says your aura is rustic cinnamon without repainting your living room. And when someone says something that feels a little too accurate, you can pause and ask, would this also make sense to the guy behind me at the pharmacy? If the answer is yes, then maybe the magic is just well-written ambiguity. But there is nothing wrong with feeling seen. The problem is only when you hand over your judgment to someone who knows how to speak in fog, when you give authority to the vague voice, just because it said you were special. You are special, but not because a sentence told you so, because you are. And if you ever read a fortune that says, you are the kind of person who values meaning but sometimes feels misunderstood, just remember, so is the dog, and he cannot even read. The spotlight effect. Why you think everyone is looking at you when they are definitely not. You are lying in bed, finally still, but your brain has opened a file it had no business opening. That moment from earlier, the awkward one, you said something, or wore something, or dropped your keys while trying to look composed. And now your mind is playing it on a loop like it was broadcast on national television. You imagine people noticed. They definitely noticed. They probably talked about it. Maybe they are still laughing. That is the spotlight effect. It is the psychological tendency to believe that others are paying far more attention to you than they actually are. That you are under a mental spotlight. That your every move, every word, every misstep is being watched, judged, and remembered. It is not vanity. It is not arrogance. It is just awareness turned up too loud. You walk into a room with a stain on your shirt and assume it is all anyone sees. You stumble over a word and feel like you have ruined the conversation. You send a message with a typo and consider moving to a new town. This is the spotlight effect. It makes you overestimate your visibility, your impact, your audience. But here is the truth. Most people are not thinking about you. They are thinking about themselves, just like you are. They are thinking about their own shirts, their own words, their own typos. They are the stars of their own shows. And while you think you are center stage, You are actually just a passing scene in the background of someone else's mental sitcom. This idea was studied by psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky. In one experiment, they asked participants to wear an embarrassing t-shirt, one with a big face on it, the kind that makes you want to fold into the earth. The wearers guessed that around 50% of people in the room would notice the shirt. In reality, only about 20% did. That gap? That is the spotlight. And it is much dimmer than you think. But your brain does not know that. Your brain is with you all the time. It hears your thoughts. It narrates your life. It tracks your every sneeze and stutter. And because you are so aware of yourself, it is easy to believe that others must be too. You feel exposed. But you are not. You are just paying attention to your own highlight reel, forgetting that everyone else is watching theirs. The spotlight effect shows up in all kinds of places. You trip in public and assume everyone saw. You wear something bold and imagine people are silently judging. You speak up in a meeting and replay every word, convinced you sounded unqualified, unprepared, unhinged. But most people are not analysts. They are not tracking your every move. At best, they might notice you for a second. Then their brain drifts back to wondering what they are having for dinner. Even when people do notice, they rarely remember. The stain? Forgotten. The awkward laugh? Gone. The stutter? Background noise. Your embarrassing moment feels huge because you are inside it. But to everyone else, it is just a flicker, a blip, a passing cloud in their own sky. And still, the spotlight effect lingers. Because it is not just about visibility. It is about vulnerability. You feel seen, and that feels risky. You want to control how you are perceived. And the moment something slips out of place, an outfit, a sentence, a gesture, you fear the whole image is ruined. You overestimate how much people notice. You also overestimate how much they care. The truth is, people are generous in their forgetfulness. They are not collecting evidence. They are navigating their own discomfort. Most of them are too busy wondering how they are coming across to focus on you for more than a breath. That is not depressing. That is liberating. It means you can relax. You can try things. You can stumble and survive. Because the spotlight you feel is mostly imagined. That speech you gave. Most people only remember the part where you smiled. That conversation. The other person was too nervous about their own voice to notice yours. That social media post you regretted? Everyone scrolled past it to look at a cat wearing sunglasses. The spotlight effect is not a flaw. It is just your brain trying to protect your place in the social fabric. You evolved in groups. Visibility mattered. Attention meant survival or danger. Being watched was once a life or death signal. Now it is just the feeling you get when your stomach growls in a quiet room. But knowing about this bias helps. It lets you loosen the grip. You can laugh at the way your brain turns a 5-second moment into a 5-hour internal documentary. You can smile when the spotlight flicks on and say, "That is not real. That is just my brain rehearsing for a play no one else is watching." You can walk into the room with confidence, knowing that most people are just trying to remember where they parked. You can make a mistake and recover without spiraling. Because the moment will pass, and so will the memory. You can also shift your focus. Instead of worrying about how you are being seen, try seeing others. Notice the person who seems unsure. Compliment the stranger. Be the first to wave. It pulls you out of the spotlight and into connection. And slowly the volume of your self-consciousness turns down. Not off, but down. You still feel the spotlight sometimes. That is okay. It means you care. But now you know it is not real. It is just a thought, a flicker, a lens that distorts. And you do not have to believe everything it shows. You can be the kind of person who trips and laughs, who misspeaks and moves on, who wears something ridiculous and owns it like royalty on laundry day. Because the people who truly stand out are not the ones who hide from attention. They are the ones who do not let it stop them. And if you ever find yourself spiraling because you wore mismatched socks to the store, And now you are convinced someone in aisle 5 is texting their group chat about it. Relax. They are texting their group chat about what they just said to their crush, who is definitely not thinking about socks. The Dunning-Kruger Effect. Why people with the least knowledge often feel the most confident. You are lying in bed, the world quiet, your thoughts soft around the edges. And suddenly you remember that conversation. The one where someone explained something to you that they clearly did not understand, but they did it with so much confidence, so much certainty, like they were auditioning for a documentary about how the universe works, except they had only read the table of contents. And the worst part? For a second, they had you convinced. That is the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It is a cognitive bias where people with low ability or knowledge in a particular area overestimate their competence, not because they are arrogant, not because they are trying to fool anyone, but because they do not yet know enough to see how little they actually know. It sounds harsh, but it is not a judgment. It is a pattern, a very human one. The less you know, the fewer mistakes you can see, the fewer blind spots you recognize. And that lack of awareness feels like clarity. It is not that ignorance feels like confidence. It is that it leaves no room for doubt. The Dunning-Kruger effect is named after psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who ran a series of studies in the late 1990s. One of them involved giving people tests in logic, grammar, and humor. The people who performed the worst consistently overestimated their performance. They thought they did well. Some even thought they did great. Meanwhile, those who performed well underestimated themselves. They assumed others had done just as well or better. They were aware of the complexity, the gaps, the nuance. And that awareness made them more cautious. This is the paradox. In many areas of life, a little knowledge can be dangerous, not because it causes harm, but because it creates false certainty. You see this everywhere. The person who watches one video about nutrition and suddenly believes they can rewrite the food pyramid. The guy who reads half an article about climate science and starts lecturing meteorologists. The coworker who learned Excel formulas yesterday and is now proposing to automate the company. This does not mean they are foolish. It means they are early in the learning curve. And early learning often comes with confidence spikes. You go from knowing nothing to knowing something. And that feels like mastery, because you do not yet know how much there is left to learn. The Dunning-Kruger curve starts high, a sharp burst of confidence when knowledge is shallow. Then it dips, what some call the valley of despair. When you begin to realize the depth of the subject, that is when humility sets in. And slowly, confidence returns as true competence grows. But never quite as high, because now it is paired with caution. The problem is, most of us meet people at different points along that curve, and we do not always know where they are. Some people speak with the voice of authority before they have earned it. Others keep quiet, even when they have something valuable to say. Confidence and competence do not always travel together. That is what makes the Dunning-Kruger effect both fascinating and frustrating. It explains why some people are loud while being wrong, and why some of the wisest people are hesitant to speak up. It also explains why you might have felt brilliant at something once, until you learned more. That feeling of, I have got this, followed by, oh no, I do not. That is the dip. That is awareness catching up to enthusiasm. It is not failure. It is growth. And once you understand this effect, you start seeing it everywhere. In meetings, in debates, in online comment sections, which are basically the Olympics of overconfidence. You start noticing that the most confident voice is not always the most informed one, and that is a powerful shift. Because it helps you pause. It helps you listen differently. You stop equating volume with accuracy. You stop assuming that someone who sounds sure must be right, and you start asking better questions. You also start being gentler with yourself and others. You remember that learning takes time, that being wrong is part of it, that most people are not pretending to be experts. They genuinely do not yet see the edges of what they do not know. And that includes you. Because the Dunning-Kruger effect is not just about other people, it is about you too. There are areas where you are overconfident, things you assume you understand more deeply than you do. It is not a flaw. It is a feature of the human brain. You do not always know what you do not know. And until you bump into it, it feels like smooth sailing. The key is curiosity. Staying open. Asking questions. Being willing to say, I am not sure, even when your ego wants to say otherwise. Because real intelligence is not loud. It is humble. It is not about proving what you know. It is about recognizing what you still need to learn. This bias also reminds us that credentials are not the same as comprehension. That confidence is not proof. That being the first to speak does not mean you are the one who should lead the conversation. Sometimes, the loudest person is still in the early chapters, and the quiet one has already read the book and written a few of their own. That does not mean silence is always wisdom, or that confidence is always misplaced. But it means we should listen with more care, more skepticism, more awareness of this effect. It also means that the next time you feel unsure, even when others seem so certain, you can remind yourself that doubt is not weakness. It might be the first sign that you are beginning to see the full picture. And if you ever find yourself explaining something with absolute certainty, and then realize halfway through that you do not actually understand it at all, take a breath. That is not failure. That is the moment your brain steps off the cliff and starts looking for stairs. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not about being foolish. It is about being human. It is about learning. It is about the strange journey from confidence to confusion to clarity. And if you ever hear someone say, actually it is pretty simple, about something like physics, psychology, geopolitics, or sourdough starters, that might just be the early stage of a very long recipe.